The idiot Lord marries 5 beautiful goddesses. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 449, Grotesque Vision 2. People with tender hearts might truly break down at this moment. After entering their place, everyone was astonished one after another. Alex cut off the pieces of meat and cast a spell towards them. A powerful fire shot out, leaving behind a long red tail that shot right into the center of the monster's body. Crash! The flames erupted with such force that the entire ruin trembled. Every mouth in the place screamed in pain. The monster also seemed to be in great pain. Wilford, who was quite close to the epicenter of the explosion, had to protect himself by covering himself with the aura. After the explosion faded away, the main body of the monster came into view. The pieces of meat were torn apart and all the arms and legs were torn off. At that moment Alex rushed forward and cast another magic spell while clicking his tongue in annoyance. It was another fire magic that caused flames to take the form of pillars and burst out everywhere from the ground. It seemed like the pillar of flames would finish everything off quickly and burn the monster down fairly easily. Crash! But Alex was shocked when his magic was blocked. The fierce pillar of fire was stopped by a semi-transparent wall. Surprisingly, what stopped Alex's magic attack was another magic spell of a higher level. The first spell managed to reach him because he was busy attacking Wilford, so he couldn't react right away. Alex expected him to try something when he was attacked the second time, but he didn't expect him to use a magic spell. "Alex, be careful." The mouth seemed to be muttering spells. Noah shouted and warned Alex and the others, who quickly tried to distance themselves. Bomb. 2 different types of magic shots fired at them. A combination of fire and wind bombarded everyone standing in the place. Wilford stepped forward and swung his sword towards the oncoming attack. Terrifying gales arose, colliding with deadly bombardments and pushing him towards the monster, who protected itself with a magic barrier again. "They made a piece of shit art," Alex muttered and looked around. Just thinking about the number of people sacrificed to make something like that made his heart cold. The people who died weren't ordinary individuals. They could be great warriors who could be crying and lamenting for becoming their people. Every piece of rotting flesh seemed to be a part of this monster, and as it writhed, Alex felt a bad feeling. The monster had a dragon heart imbued within it, meaning it had a vast amount of mana, which also means it can exert extraordinary control over mana. Alex's senses tingled and his back was drenched in sweat as he thought of the terrifying revelation. Alex turned to look at Noah, who was already pale as a sheet. "Noah, since this monster's main body can use magic, that means..." It didn't take long for Noah to understand what Alex meant, and he gulped nervously. The lips that were around them, as if they wanted to respond to them, began to project. And soon magic spells began to complete one after another, followed by projectiles flying from everyone towards them. Magic attacks were unleashed with various properties such as fire, water, wind, earth, and lightning, almost completely destroying the place. Each of them was a high-level magic attack that exerted a great amount of power and mana. If a crazy, maniac mage witnessed this scene, then they would have expressed their greatest admiration for the colorful display of magic, but with the point that they were not the target of these attacks. "Run!" No one knew who shouted first, but as if it was an order from the commander, everyone began to run through the narrow tunnel to the outside. Even Alex followed the order and tried to escape. The space was too tight to fight properly, and the numerous spells being thrown at them could hurt them. Rather than risking their lives here, it was better to fight in the wide trench outside. Explosion! Explosion! Magic spells spilled out everywhere. In an instant, the ground they were standing on was burned to a crisp. The scene of the group of people desperately fleeing during the spell was similar to the situation where firecrackers are thrown in a crowded area, causing everyone to run frantically. As the attacks were thrown mindlessly, many of them collided with each other and canceled each other out. However, it was still not enough to neutralize everything and cause a significant impact on the group. Wilford covered others who fled as if they had seen hell. The main group was throwing punches and kicks at him, making it difficult for him to counter them due to the tight space. He was also worried about whether the tunnel could hold up after passing through the barrage of attacks. Alex swung his mana-charged sword, which cut down a magic attack flying in its path. However, another magic attack came towards him, and as he cut it down, another one appeared and then another after that. The knights quickly moved through the tunnel that was filled with rotten flesh shooting at them. Noah struggled to hold the barrier, which began to crack due to the sheer amount of spells raining down on them. Wilford swung his sword and his attacks penetrated the wall and blew away a significant portion of the wall he passed through. However, the other writhing mass of flesh began to take shape into arms and lips that shot out again. It seemed as if they were trying to kill Alex and his companions at all costs. Boom! After annihilating a magic attack and swinging his sword through the small gap created in between, the sword attack flew out like a flash, cutting off a pair of monster arms along with the lips as he stopped the spell casting to scream in despair. As he suffered through the wave of attacks, Alex only had one thought in his mind: reduce the entire place to ashes with an atomic bomb. The situation really made him sick. The archer shot arrows through the arms and lips, making them scream in agony. Pop! Pop! The arrows cut cleanly through the arms and left small gaps for them, which were used by other knights to advance through the passage. Alex, who was in the middle of the group, saw the entrance, but his happiness didn't last long as he saw the rotting corpses trying to cover their path of retreat while they focused their spells on them. Fortunately, there were no golems, otherwise they might have been in really life-threatening situations. With a frustrated expression he shouted, "Make way for me." The knights in front of him stepped aside to allow him to step forward. Haha. Alex's breathing hitched and his muscles tensed. The explosion of mana engulfed his sword, and against the magic that seemed to be coming at him from all sides, he unleashed all of his power. Swoosh! A strong shockwave erupted, and the flying magic attacks pouring at him flew away due to the shockwaves as chunks of flesh were torn and shattered. The magic attacks coming from the entrance were blocked, and Noah didn't miss this opportunity. Rumble! The lightning on his staff rumbled, and before another magic attack could fly towards him and interfere, he fired his spell accompanied by Alex, who thrust his sword. Instead of annihilating Noah's attack, Alex's attack increased its momentum and collided with the one coming from the door, and a blinding flash was emitted. Although everyone was blinded for a moment, they didn't stop their steps and continued forward. Boom! Flames erupted from the entrance, and a few moments later a group of people jumped out. As soon as they got out, they rolled on the ground and breathed in the fresh air around them as if they hadn't breathed for several centuries. Alex held on tightly as he looked at the group of men. Even Noah had crouched down to get some rest. He frowned and his lips twitched at the sight of their expression, making him wonder if they had forgotten something. It was an assumption at first as he saw them looking around calmly and stomped his foot heavily, shaking them off. Did everyone get hit in the head? The fight isn't over. This is where the real battle begins, Alex shouted. His angry voice snapped them out of their happy thoughts. Noah wiped away his sweat and turned his gaze away. He frowned and spoke anxiously. Where did Sir Wilford go? I remember, he was right behind us. Alex didn't answer and just stared at the entrance to the passage from which an explosion was heard, and Wilford's figure shot through it. He landed beside them with a pale expression, as if he had witnessed a horrible scene. Chapter 450, Giant Made of Flesh. Everyone in the area stared at the chunks of meat coming out of the door and began to take the form of a giant. The meat began to take the form of a humanoid figure and took a step forward. Thud! Every time the huge giant of incredible mass put his feet on the ground trembled slightly as the giant began to walk. Tremors echoed everywhere. He seemed as large as the castle or a legendary monster, to the point that his top pierced the rocky ceiling, causing rubble and debris to fall down. The place was too small for him. Even though they were in mountainous areas, it was mostly made up of hills between 100 and 150 meters, and this monster could surpass that height. The knights destroyed the pieces of scrap falling on them as they backed away from the huge figure. Is this the person's last fight for revenge? A knight spoke in a stiff voice. They had never felt mana as dense as this. Furthermore, they couldn't sense the level of the monsters that horrified them even more. All of them were of legendary rank and were subject to respect and worship, but in the face of this, they seemed like tiny ants that could be crushed. The pure, icy mana emanating from the giant made Noah shudder and gave him an extreme sense of crisis. If this was that person's last fight, then he might want to go down with him. Alex, I think we should retreat, Noah muttered with a panicked expression. We'll call for help and then come back to dismantle it. Alex wanted to refute, but seeing everyone's ugly expression, he too was stumped for a moment. The situation had not yet become so dangerous that they should retreat. There is still a 90% chance for them to win, but what about the remaining 10%? What if another unfortunate event were to occur? They all came here after pinning their hopes on him, and he was the one who brought them here. Because of that, he can't let them die no matter what. Even if they are missing out on a great opportunity to learn about the organization, even if they don't know if there will be a chance, they need to survive instead of charging forward like crazy. As Alex began to face a dilemma on what to do, everyone heard Wilford's voice. These kinds of things are dangerous. They are currently unstable. I don't think they can maintain that power for long. Even for a short period of time, it is extremely dangerous. Also, if we retreat and flee, what will happen to the people around? Crack. At that moment, the giant moved his hand and tore the ceiling apart, and a change occurred on the giant's face as something could be seen breaking through his face. Is it the leader's face? Noah muttered. The face of the leader with two thick arms and legs made of some beast appeared, making the situation quite dire. Contrary to the dire situation, the leader smiled. Hey, you will all die here and be crushed by the mountain debris. The words sounded louder, but the speech deteriorated a bit, making it harder for everyone to understand, although everyone could feel the joy in the tone at that moment. Everyone leave. I'll take care of him, Wilford said and jumped towards the collapsed roof. Sir Wilford. Noah shouted, wanting to stop him. Noah came out through the entrance and tried to come in from the hill. The base might collapse here, Alex warned. Where are you going? Noah asked with wide eyes as he saw Alex stepping forward. Am I going to fight that guy? Alex said with a flat tone. Are you crazy? Maybe. I can't leave Sir Wilford alone. I took responsibility for everyone's safety. A promise is a promise. Since I've said it, I'll see it through to the end even if I end up dying. Really? Noah shouted with a frown as his body shook at the sight of Lex's resolve. Don't die, you idiot. We still need you. Don't forget about the deal we made, Noah said hurriedly with his expression and relief. Did you really think he would die at the hands of this ugly creature? Unlike certain people, I have some lovely women waiting to hug me when I get back, Alex spoke with a smile and jumped. Noah's jaw dropped wide and he swallowed the anger that was about to burst from his heart. Pushing through the falling dust and debris, Alex stepped out and landed on a rocky cliff. The mountain was not straight and erect, but had a gradual slope with terraces that made it easier to stand. Alex looked around and found a pleasant sight around him, but he didn't have time to enjoy it as a series of clashes had already begun. Bam! The giant swings his arms and as he descends towards Wilford, many magic spells come out of him. Bam! The giant feet staggered towards the ground, and it didn't seem like the man had full control over his body, but he was unable to maintain his balance, making it easy for Wilford to easily dodge the blow that passed by him. Huge shockwaves accompanied by dust were produced and a large part of the mountain was crushed, forming a hole in the cliff. Seemingly annoyed, the giant shouted strange sounds from his 1,000 lips and swung his arm again. His attacks failed again because both Alex and Wilford managed to sneak under them. A huge torrent of fireballs shot out from the hands, which split into many parts and scattered across the mountains, causing a chain of many explosions. One of the attacks passes through the mountain and lands in the huge lake. Another huge fire arose in the distance and like an exploding volcano, flames spewed into the sky and the remains of the earth were scattered everywhere. Sigh, Alex breathed heavily as he watched the colossal display of power. Rather than boasting a great size, if it had been concentrated into a small entity like a suit, then the devastation caused by it would be unimaginable. Just thinking about it makes Alex's hair stand on end. Thankfully he didn't say it out loud. Otherwise, who knows if this bastard will implement it and make him a suit named Meat Man. Without wasting any more time, Alex pulled out a deadweight greatsword from his ring and prepared to strike with it. The giant swung his arm again, and this time he didn't miss and crashed into Wilford, who swung his sword. A loud explosion was heard in the surroundings, causing a part of the mountain to collapse. The leader's explosion collapsed when he saw the blocked hands, and when he looked towards the place where his hands were blocked, a powerful blow hit him from the side, causing him to stutter and fall to the side. He reaches out his hands for support as he searches for whatever hit him when he hears someone mock him. Where are you looking, idiot? Chapter 451, Fighting the Giant. The expression on the giant's massive face distorted, and he shifted his massive body to the other side to see a small human staring at him with a huge grin. A huge shadow was cast over Alex as the giant moved towards him, and the entire area around him turned into darkness. The giant's eyes flickered and countless hands converged, following which a beam of destruction was shot towards Alex. Boom! A terrifying explosion crashed towards Alex and emitted destructive shockwaves that leveled the entire place. Noah led his men out of the cave and breathed a sigh of relief seeing that none of them had lost their lives. They were only lightly injured, which chilled his heart, but the thought of the inhuman figure being blocked by Wilford and Alex made his heart shudder. "Your Highness, what are we going to do next? We can't let that giant roam free because it could cause enormous destruction in the neighboring kingdoms." Noah, who was deep in thought, suddenly felt noises one after another that made him lose his balance. The knights also fell and grabbed onto the edge of the rocky walls of the mountain. At that moment one of the knights raised his head, and his eyes widened as he saw a rocky mass of debris falling on them. "Your Highness, be careful," one of them shouted and swung his sword, drawing a long arc that crashed into the rocks, falling on them, turning them into dust. Noah's body stiffened, and he looked up to see the mountain crumbling and large vibrations transmitted over the surface. Noah was instantly alerted and brandished his staff to destroy the debris falling on them. "Let's leave this place," Noah shouted. The knights immediately left, but stopped when they saw the path they had come from beginning to crumble. Noah gritted his teeth and shouted, "Jump into the river quickly. We will swim across the lake and reach the surface." The knights obeyed the order and jumped into the massive lake without hesitation. As they swam across the lake, the sky above their heads suddenly turned red and everyone's bodies froze at the sight that greeted them. The mountains were not very high, standing a little over 150 meters, and from the middle of the lake they could catch a glimpse of the giant struggling on the other side as it stuttered its way through. But what baffled him was a massive mass of fire heading straight for them. "Damn it!" Noah shouted as the fire descended into the lake. Boom! The entire lake shook and water splashed everywhere like a tsunami and passed over the surface. As the waves crashed against the land and retreated, a few figures were thrown out like trapped fish, coughing violently to get out the water that forcefully swallowed their throats due to the explosion. Noah swept his gaze across everyone, and thankfully everyone was there before him. The explosion caused a massive surge of water that pushed them to the surface, and they were now on the other side of the lake near the end of the mountains, and could catch a glimpse of the battle going on ahead. Noah staggered as he tried to stand up, and his sight caught the image of the giant glaring angrily at something and then punching a series of places. And the one who got the beating was none other than Alex, who seemed to be taunting the giant. "Hey!" Noah's breathing stopped, and he froze at the sight as he watched explosions erupt like volcanoes, one after another, decimating everything they hit. It was a terrifying scene where heavy clouds of dust and smoke rose up along with the explosion. But what shocked him was the scene that unfolded before his eyes after the dust dispersed, forcing him to say, "A madman like you surely doesn't die easily." The same thing happened to the giant, who let out a startled cry out of nowhere. He turned his face right where the barrage of spells hid him, and nothing was left there. The place had been razed to the ground, and the only thing left were flames and scorched earth. The fiery sparks accompanied by lightning looked like a sight where a meteorite had just fallen, and at the center of it stood the figure who was standing motionless in burning pain right now, or should have been annihilated. But with a smug smile, he held a huge sword that covered him like an umbrella. There was no trace of destruction in the area beneath the huge sword he held. While Giant's eyes focused on Alex with a gaze that looked as if his eyes were going to pop out of their sockets, a flash of light appeared behind his back. "Did you forget me, idiot?" Wilford spoke in Alex's path and pulled out his sword. A huge arc was drawn in the air that struck the giant's back, extending towards the shoulder, almost cutting off his hand. Ugh! The gap between the shoulder and arm created due to the attack began to close as several stretched flesh sprouted from the shoulder and mixed with the arm, painting a grotesque picture. "It can even regenerate," Wilford said with a grim expression. The situation had become more complicated than he had thought. The giant responded with a beastly, agonizing scream. Hundreds of lips opened and a heart-wrenching scream echoed out like the cry of a banshee. Even Wilford felt uncomfortable due to the scream that nearly left him deaf. Many lips screaming at the same time made it seem like a sonic attack from the giant. The giant's patched face began to crumble with an expression of torment that made him lose his temper and forget about Alex's existence. He raised his other arm that contained enormous strength and descended upon Wilford, trying to crush him into the ground mercilessly. Chapter 452, Head-on Collision. The giant was made from the organs and bodies of thousands of individuals, and all of them were forced and stitched into the giant, and the sensation of each organ was passed to the control center that was currently occupied by the leader. Due to the overwhelming pain, a severe headache assaulted his mind, which was deduced from his ability to control. Every time the giant was attacked, he severely felt the pain that the giant suffered. "Damn it! Damn it!" he screamed inwardly. If the research had ended, he wouldn't have suffered so much. Even the sedatives seemed to be losing their effect, After going through the experiment of having his limbs cut off and then reattached, his pain tolerance was already on another level compared to humans, but still, it wasn't enough compared to the pain of hundreds of individuals. The pain clouded his mind and overwhelmed him greatly. His heart filled with fits of rage as he watched the 2 mosquitoes flying around him as they sneakily bit him. With a muffled groan, he took another step forward and aimed at Wilford while his other hand spewed flames towards Alex. Thud. Alex held the hilt of his sword in one hand and the blade in the other. Taking a firm step, he drew out all his strength and plunged the massive sword into the giant. Crash! With a terrifying explosion of pressure, the giant was counterattacked with a force that pushed him through the mountains, shattering everything in his path. Goodbye. Goodbye KKK, I will kill. Even before they could finish their speech, he was hit again by Wilford, and due to the slight distraction, he failed to notice Alex, who with a powerful leap jumped onto the giant's shoulders and then appeared above his head. Alex grabbed the great sword and poured his mana into it, frantically making it heavier and heavier. The giant, who was searching for Alex here and there, suddenly felt a heavy mass on his head, forcing him to lean down and falter his movement. Take this, bastard, Alex muttered and raised his sword vertically, pointing towards the sun. Exhaling heavily, he swung his sword with all his might and struck the head. The giant's head was crushed with great force, which radiated tremors through the top, causing the flesh to shake like jelly. Bang! The giant's figure was twisted and flattened at the neck. The area where the sword was hit turned into a bloody mist. Kuwak! Deafening screams rang out around the giant's head. As he screamed in terror, the head of the giant's body, which was flattened towards the neck, tilted. Thump! Thump! In order to keep his balance, the giant stumbled a couple of steps back but twisted his torso and ended up falling backwards, so Alex jumped to the side in Wilford's direction. Kuwa! Dust rose into the sky as the giant fell to the ground with a loud thud that caused the earth to shake. The hill he fell on was decimated into dust and flesh scattered everywhere. He's fine even after this, Alex muttered in a surprised tone. Alex, my attacks aren't working. We need to destroy its flesh, and your magic attack is the only thing that could make that easier, Wilford muttered. Alex nodded and thought for a moment. The dragon's heart contained a huge amount of mana. We also need to get rid of it somehow. For that we need to reduce its size. The conversation was cut short as the giant stood up again. Wham! As if trying to catch the insect, its arms that looked more ferocious extended towards them. Alex stepped back and Wilford took the hit. Crunch! The giant's arm collided with Wilford's sword and his arms were pushed back again. Wilford attacked and blew off a small portion of the giant's hands, and chunks of flesh scattered all around the giant's arms, trying to make his way towards the giant, but a blue current passed through them, turning them into crispy charcoal. Alex turned his body and swung his sword with the built-up momentum towards the giant. An arc of fire collided with the giant that burned the outer chunks of flesh there. As the giant was focused on one thing, which was catching the bugs, the defenses all over its body had been neglected. At this moment, it was nothing more than a giant punching bag for Alex and Wilford to enjoy. Due to its massive size, there were many glitches in its movement and coordination. Wilford and Alex continued the charge. Alex swung his lightning and fire-imbued sword at the giant, causing it to collapse. The rotten flesh was electrocuted and burned by Alex's attack and fell off the giant's body as pieces of ash and dust. He screamed over and over like a child throwing a tantrum. He stood up again and attacked Wilford, who blocked and evaded the attack while swinging his sword at the giant body. Swerve! The giant lost his balance, but this time he only took a couple of steps back and didn't fall. Alex and Wilford launched a series of attacks. The giant retreated a bit. Their attacks were incredibly fierce and didn't even allow him to counterattack, but eventually the speed at which he retreated slowed down. Alex frowned as he attacked the giant again and again. As his figure lunged towards the giant, he saw the palm coming towards him, which was blocked by Wilford, who appeared before me. Unfortunately, the palm didn't lose its momentum and Wilford was hit by it. He was crushed by the hands and sent flying, coughing up blood before Alex's astonished gaze. The giant's gaze locked onto Alex, forcing him to change his plans. Giving up on attacking, Alex tried to get away from the giant that started attacking him with spells as he extended his arms towards him. Watching the fast and swift movements, Alex gritted his teeth to jump from one part of the hill to the other. Although his speed was great and he was shooting from one place to another like a cannon, the giant was able to quickly catch up to him. What Alex feared earlier finally happened. As he tried to destroy as much flesh as possible, Alex wondered if the giant would become weaker or stronger. Currently, The huge mass of rotten flesh chunks seemed to make it difficult to control the giant's every micro-movement. So, wouldn't it benefit the giant to lose some mass? What if his speed and agility increased by losing the flesh he couldn't control and becoming stronger? With this thought in mind, Alex tried to look for an alternative ways to defeat the giant. Thinking through all sorts of scenarios, he concluded to destroy the dragon heart that tied everything in the giant together. Locating the dragon heart within the massive mass of rotting fat wasn't a big problem, rather piercing the giant's defenses was. Each piece of flesh seemed to have an individual consciousness of its own, and every time they got close to it, they were met with strong resistance. On top of the magic barrier, the flesh would harden and lash out hard upon approach, which even made it even harder for Wilford to break through. But even after this, Wilford managed to get close and stabbed through the defense. He was attacked from the point blank that he should have hit, but just before impact, the heart was ripped out and shifted from that position. And that was when they realized that the heart's position wasn't fixed and could change depending on the situation. Alex was quite fast, but even after this, the hand almost reached him. Not witnessing any spells being cast as the hands descended upon him, Alex turned his body and faced the massive palm. Pulling back the sword from behind, Alex struck the palm with the blunt end. The heavy greatsword struck the edge of the palm and formed a dent, much to the giant's shock. The chunks of flesh where the greatsword impacted burst into pieces, and as the impact traveled across the palm, the flesh swelled and exploded into a mist of blood. Alex, who jumped back, muttered after witnessing the scene, "This sure is more effective. Sir Wilford isn't a magic swordsman and his technique is meant to cause great damage in a small spot, whereas, in this situation, someone like me who could cause massive destruction is much more useful." Although Wilford cut off one of his arms and even cut the giant into pieces, it didn't mean much because the giant was able to reattach himself. With this thought in mind, Alex leapt straight towards the spot where the heart currently was. The giant was focused on fixing the palm while Wilford had already taken the position to attack from behind. The deadweight greatsword was sheathed in a reddish aura that burst into flames followed by flashes of lightning. Like a bolt of lightning, Alex's figure, who was still traversing the distance, disappeared and materialized before the giant. His target was the heart that was beating through the skin, but his eyes widened as a huge face appeared above that spot. Instead of defending himself, he opened his mouth wide and many arms appeared within it, locking onto Alex and spitting out flames. Alex's eyes flashed madly and he roared madly, "Go ahead, let's face all obstacles and see whose attack is stronger." With a loud declaration, Alex faced the opponent's attack that spread severe heat accompanied by a thunderous rumble. Chapter 453, Head-on Collision 2. Time seemed to slow down for a moment. At that moment, the huge mouth formed on the chest opened wide and Alex's vision was dyed with crimson flames along with dark lightning. A beam of condensed mass of energy intertwined against the other and shot towards Alex, who was in the face with no chance of dodging the attack unless he used teleportation. The destructiveness of the attacks had reached a terrifying level and was akin to a dragon's rage, but even so, Alex was calm. His crimson eyes were so calm that it was terrifying when the seemingly overwhelming flash of heat reached him. With his body enveloped in the radiance of blessings and all sorts of benefits, the shadow of the huge sword with immense mass was drawn in a straight line and faced the giant destructive attack head-on. The first wave of flames was torn apart and distorted due to the momentum of the sword falling with gravity. Then another wave of converging flames and lightning collided. There was a stalemate for a brief moment as neither side was able to defeat the other for a moment. The space was compressed to a minuscule point due to both attackers being pushed against each other with great pressure, and then the compressed space began to enlarge. Boom! An abyss over 200 meters deep immediately formed on the ground as the flames that were split apart by Alex's attack hit the ground. The sky rumbled loudly, followed by a deafening thunderous explosion that sent strong shockwaves and gales all over the place. The entire mountain shuddered as cracks formed everywhere. A blinding flash of light occurred, blinding anyone who saw the scene. After a short moment, a massive dark shadow was thrown back like a bolt of lightning that collided and decimated the pointed mountain peak, turning it into dust, and crashed into another one, forming a large crack on it. What caused such devastating destruction was the greatsword deadweight that was thrown back with great momentum. Although it was thrown back, Alex's condition wasn't that good either. Alex's body shook, and he was flung far away by the shockwave that struck him in the chest. A thin thread of red blood slid out from the corner as the rebound of the flames assaulted him and exploded the armor he was wearing and burned his chest and arms. Like a comet, leaving behind a red tail, Alex was sent flying, engulfed in flames, and fell onto the rocky plateau and rolled on the ground like a rag doll with broken and crushed bones all over his body. His skull was cracked and his skin was torn apart due to the impact against the ground, leaving his ribcage and bloodied sternum exposed, in which small cracks appeared. Blood was dripping from his body like a waterfall, and he had to grit his teeth and bite his lips to remain conscious after being injured to such a degree. His vision was darkening, but there was a smile on his face as he looked at the giant and muttered, "I've done my part, now it's yours, Kayak." A heavy feeling of suffering and despair resonated as the giant groaned in pain. The giant was served from the middle, and his left side was left hanging loose and falling towards the other side. But that wasn't all. He was finding it difficult to put himself back together, as the flesh and bone in the middle had been burned and annihilated by Alex's blow. The loss of a large mass of flesh had destabilized its condition, making it difficult for it to even stand, and the dragon's heart had been exposed to the outside. The flesh tried to cover it, but the area was burning, and as the beating heart radiated mana to extinguish the flames, it was hit by a lightning spell from afar. The giant groaned and looked towards the place where the gunshots occurred, and his eyes caught Noah's vision. As his eyes focused on Noah, a beam of ore shot out and Wilfred appeared near the heart, taking advantage of his distraction. The ore condensed on the tip of the sword and stabbed into the heart. It was met with resistance, but the tip pierced through the barrier and reached the heart, where the ore condensed on the blade exploded and destroyed the heart, putting an end to everything. With the heart collapsing, chunks of flesh fell away and began to rot. As the chunks of flesh near the head fell apart, they saw the leader, whose eyes were wide open and his figure melted into the flesh. "Not all of you will be safe. Once they know this, all of you will be slaughtered like dogs." With the final words, the leader's figure crumbles and bursts into pieces. Tap, tap, tap. Limping and stumbling along the way, Alex reached the spot with great difficulty, only to be greeted by the horrible stench of flesh that was rotting at an astonishing rate. Noah arrived there and looked at Alex with a shocked expression and asked, "Why aren't you healing yourself? My mana reserves are quite low, and the attack is imbued with a large amount of mana, which is slowing down my healing." "It will take me some time to recover," Alex said with a wry smile. He could use restoration to get to the top, but there was no need. "Sir Wilfred, what about the dragon heart?" Alex asked. Wilfred pointed at the spot and said, "It wasn't the whole heart, but it was still half of it. It was quite fantastic." Everyone's gazes fell on the half-meter-long massive heart that had a huge hole in it and was still moving slowly. Noah's eyes sparkled as he said, "Can we use it somehow?" Alex shook his head and said, "Even if it wasn't destroyed, it would be unusable and would soon stop working. It seems rather unstable and has been kept running at full speed. Now it's nothing more than trash that could bring us a lot of trouble," Alex muttered. Alex looked at Noah's sad expression and said, "Let's clean it up and search for any clues left in the ruins, if only there were any." Noah corrected Alex as he felt that after being trampled by the giant, there would be nothing left in the ruins. Still, they began their search through the rubble and debris. Chapter 454, Fishing for Fish. Since childhood, Sienna's days were shrouded in sadness, misery, and loneliness. It wasn't because she wasn't loved by anyone, but it was the love that everyone gave her that made it difficult for her to accept the desires trapped in her heart. After the revelation that her siblings might die in the future, her father, the emperor, already began planning for the future where he will stabilize the throne in case they all died. Her father had only married a single woman and they had 3 children, after which her mother died. From that day on, she had to walk a bitter and thorny path where she had no say. She wore her hair short and always dressed like a boy. It was like this for years, and the naive Sienna, who doesn't know much about gender, didn't find anything strange until she was 6 years old. The education of the royals began early, and it was then that they were made aware of gender differences. As she grew up, she had to suppress her desire to live carefree like the rest of the people. Although the descendant of nobles had to live a hard life, her own was much harder. She didn't have many friends and always stayed away from public events to prevent anyone from finding out about her deep secret. It was only when Arkham began to crumble with no hope in sight that she gained freedom. "Sienna, we don't know how much longer we can hold out. It seems this is the test we have to face," just like the goddess said. "If anything happens to us, I want you to take the throne. But now, the way things are going, I don't think you have any empire left that you can handle. You may prove to be a great empress, but I don't want you to struggle desperately. Instead of suppressing and forcing you like this, I want you to live your life." So I hope you can live your life, be a good wife, and have wonderful children. When we fall, I want you to escape to the Dwarven lands and become a magician at the Magic Tower. I've already made some arrangements. Live your life to the fullest." Sienna should be happy after hearing the heavenly words and dancing in joy because she finally obtained the freedom she desired after so long. However, this was not the freedom she had wished for. Her world went blank when she saw her elder brother lying unconscious in a near-death state on the bed. Her heart bleeds when she hears the news about the war with Kinley that produces a devastating result that almost cost her second brother his life. Hearing about the suffering of the village and the encroaching miasma broke her heart. In the midst of all those crises, finally, a ray of light illuminated them and her world suddenly seemed to be filled with various colors. It was all because of the appearance of that man. At first, the sight of him disgusted her greatly and she wanted to tear the man who had massacred her army to pieces. His fame for brutality and notoriety had spread throughout Arkham. He might be a hero to Kinley, but to Arkham he was worse than a villain who snatched away their hope and destroyed not only their hope but the homes of many as well. And it was this man who had previously shattered their hope, brought Arkham back from its demise and given them new hope. And to her frustration, she unwittingly found herself drawn to the man who followed him and showed her a new life. Raya, with whom she oddly felt comfortable, became one of her first friends with whom she could chat and talk calmly about all her burdens. It was with her that she was able to be herself and do her favorite job, gossiping. This was also what they did while walking in the garden. "Raya, what does Alex's existence mean to you?" Raya smiled upon hearing her question and began to narrate. "He is the light of my shadow. Without him, I would either be mired in darkness and lying in some slum or I would have become some kind of monster who would have become a disposable instrument for others." Sienna shuddered a little after Raya's description and casually asked, "What if through some unfortunate event, both of you are separated from each other?" Raya's steps stopped and she looked at Sienna for a moment. "There will never be a day like this. I believe in him and so does he. Although I can't say that our love has gone through all kinds of trials and lasted long, I can say that I can feel a special connection whenever I am with him, no matter how much pain I had to endure, no matter how much suffering and despair I feel. His presence is enough to make me forget all my suffering. He accepts me no matter what I become in the future. Even if we are separated and further apart, we will find our way to each other through the abyss of time." Sienna gulped as if she heard something so profound that she couldn't understand. At this moment, Raya pinched her and said, "One day you will surely understand this. Doesn't your heart race whenever he appears before you, eh?" "Who are you talking about?" Sienna averted her gaze and feigned ignorance. At this moment, a maid came and said, "Your Highness, Sir Ian is waiting for the appointment." "Sir Ian is already here. Tell him to wait a bit," Sienna said with a nervous expression. "Sister Raya, I apologize. I have an appointment. Have fun, Sienna." "I hope you listen to your heart," Raya giggled, causing Sienna to blush slightly. Sienna tilted her head and walked out to meet Ian. Raya smiled a little, looked at the bushes and asked, "How long are you going to hide in there?" With a rustling sound, Alex appeared with a dazed expression. Walking up to Raya, he wrapped his arms around her neck, kissed her on the cheek and looked at the side in front of him with a surprised look. "When did this happen?" "When you're away, Alex's lips curled up and he chuckled. "Looks like my son Ian caught a big fish. What a skilled fisherman. Perhaps he's learned from you," Raya said with a giggle and nudged Alex's torso with her elbow. "Why don't you teach me how to fish too?" Now, Alex pretended to be very hurt. "You're slandering my innocent self," Raya smiled helplessly and asked, "Did you find anything in there?" Alex shook his head and said, "Not much, but still, it felt good to destroy those bastard hiding places. They have a name too, Omen." Raya frowned upon hearing the name. "It seems quite evil." Alex laughed bitterly thinking of the person who came up with that name. "It seems that the person was afflicted with a Chunabio disease. Those cockroaches are perfect. I wish we could find their hiding places quickly. I want to stomp them soon." "You'll do it soon," Raya assured him. Chapter 455, Entering the Royal Mausoleum. Sniff. Sniff. It was a sad cry. Whoever looked at the cry wouldn't be able to guess if it was filled with joy or sadness. Sob. Sob. "I'm happy for Ian, he deserved it." The huge, burly man shed tears as he sneaked a glance at Ian from afar. Rather than an intimidating warrior, he looks more like a crybaby. "Max, tell me the truth. Are you happy for him or are you sad that he's no longer single?" Alex asked and patted Max on the shoulder. Max felt like an arrow pierced his heart and burst into tears. "It's okay. You'll meet your soulmate someday. Max rubbed his eyes and wiped away his tears. Now, tell me, how have you been? Alex asked and looked at his men who had been in the royal castle and were training with the imperial soldiers. The joint exercise was quite fruitful and each of them became stronger than before. Train as if you were going to face death on the battlefield. We don't know if some unknown variable will appear, so we have to prepare for the best. Alex, what about you? I heard you're going into seclusion, Johnson asked. Alex nodded and said, yes, I'm going to train remotely at a place arranged by the Emperor. I might be late if I get too absorbed in training. So in that case, follow Noah's orders. He won't actively deploy you unless the situation arises and will simply stand by until I return. Do you understand? Yes, everyone shouted in high spirits. Alex greeted them and gave them a series of orders and instructions before setting off. I heard you had a lot of fun. Alex heard a mocking tone and just smiled a little. Your Highness, I was just doing my job. Will the things we brought from that place be of any help? Alex asked. Work is already underway on it. We'll see the results in a few days, Vermouth replied. The golems are quite advanced with a self-destruct system. They're meant to kill. Alex nodded and pondered for a moment. After defeating the giant, they searched the secret base in every nook and cranny. The place was trampled into dust by the giant flesh of the corpses. Still, there were many things they obtained from there. First were the unfinished golems, which once completed can be of great help to them. Secondly, there were the experienced people who were imprisoned in the basement. They were trampled to death due to the fight, and those who were alive were in a pathetic state and begged Alex to kill them and free them from hell. There were people of all ages and it was a disgusting sight. Alex, who had a soft spot for children, felt nauseous at the sight. He wanted to prevent all of this and dismantle those suspicious organizations. Just as the name suggests, it was doing all sorts of evil deeds that couldn't be forgiven no matter the reason. People having properties of beasts and humans was no laughing matter. It was an international matter that all empires, regardless of their species, needed to resolve. No one knew exactly how many of these people were present, but Alex knew one thing about them. They were nothing more than discarded waste from the organization that was supposed to be thrown away. They also found a lot of magic scrolls and some specimens that were going to be brainwashed. It was a place to brainwash people, so after seizing everything, Noah and Alex decided to destroy everything in that place. They seized the illegal magic scrolls and passed them to the magic towers. They didn't find any darkness pills or anything related to that, which made Alex suffocated a little. Perhaps it was something special that was produced in some highly secret place. What are you thinking so deeply about? Alex was brought out of his thoughts upon hearing Vermouth's words. I was thinking about the problems the world might be facing. There's been a lot going on in the background that we're not aware of. Who knows when calamity will strike again? If humans don't unite and cooperate with each other in this situation, I don't think anyone will be safe. Vermouth listened to Alex's words and agreed with him. Humans are selfish by nature. Unless we gain a benefit, we'll never be together. Either we must unite them for benefits or, you know better than I do what it is. Vermouth laughed and gave Alex a meaningful look. When they were facing a crisis of extinction or being subdued by force, Alex replied with a grim expression. The two of them didn't speak for a while, and Alex simply followed Vermouth, who led him towards the royal family mausoleum. Large white buildings with pillars were erected at the place, giving it the appearance of a holy shrine. Alex looked around the cemetery and saw that it was divided into many sections. One section was for the emperors and empresses, another for the princes, and another for the wives. Passing through all of them, they head straight towards a large section at the back where there was only one grave. Vermouth knelt down before the grave and bowed to it. Alex also followed suit and gave a short bow. This is the grave of the emperor who founded Arkham. It was he who with blood and tears, with his dying breath, fought against Kinley and conquered a part of it. The army he marched with was made up of fallen slaves and aristocrats of Kinley. The emperor of Kinley at that time was cruel. It was because of his inability that Kinley was divided into 3 empires today. Alex was intrigued by Vermouth's words, but more than that he wanted to know something else. Unable to suppress his curiosity, he asked, "How is the current emperor of Kinley?" Vermouth looked at Alex with an inexplicable expression and let out a sigh. "He's too competent and promising. It's a pity that he was born at the wrong time. If he was born during the age of chaos and conquest, he might have carved his name into legend. He might be in this era as well, but in the past 30 years he hasn't made a move. It's as if he's lost interest in everything." He doesn't actively participate in politics or show his presence to the world, so keenly as declining as the fear he had sown in the world during his prime has been fading away. Alex frowned, and for a long time he couldn't think of a logical reason for this. Do you know the reason? Alex asked. Vermouth shrugged and shook his head. You should ask that man when you meet him. Who knows if he'll answer you? No, he might. Why do you think he'll answer me? It's just intuition, Vermouth said with a smile and stood up, leaving Alex stunned. Before Alex could ask anything else, a portal appeared before them. Let's go in. You'll find your gift inside. Chapter 456, Tearing the Island. Alex and Vermouth, who were at the back of the cemetery with a single coffin in sight, suddenly felt a surge of mana. A portal appeared before Alex and he could notice a pocket dimension in it. A pocket dimension and hear everything, Alex said with a smile. Follow me, Vermouth said and walked in. Space distorted before Alex and he was pulled into a strange place. Alex walked in and the first thing that came into view was a huge blue sky, although there was no sun in sight. There was no wind but the grass was swaying. Alex hit the ground and looked around, noticing that the place was strangely comfortable. He closed his eyes and inhaled deeply. The mana here is quite dense, Alex muttered, causing Vermouth, who was beside him, to nod. Across the field was a beautiful garden, and in the center were many old buildings that looked quite run down as they were not well kept. Alex could also see some statues of who could be the Emperor of Arkham. Alex could see the vastness of space. It was impossible to create this alone. It was a work of art. The subspace used by a creature of darkness was kept running by the blessing of the god of darkness. Once the blessing and divinity collapse, the pocket dimension would collapse, but this place seems to have been made artificially without any blessing. As Alex approached, Vermouth appeared and asked, "Don't you think it's a very beautiful place? It's warm and relaxing along with a gentle breeze caressing you. This place seems to be a nice place to retire to with your wives and children," Alex said with a smile. "I agree. How did you create such a place? Did Arkham have an archmage? No. Does it require the help of a supreme mage? This pocket dimension was created 100 years ago. Our ancestors, along with the pioneers of the Magic Tower, had a hand in its creation," Vermouth muttered. "Every empire has something like this?" Alex asked curiously. Vermouth nodded at Alex's question and muttered, "This place also acts as an evacuation center for royalty in case of hard times, and only the person who carries royal blood can access the place, and I'm the only exception," Alex said in disbelief. "Yes, this place is good for training. The mana here is 5 times denser than outside. 1 day outside is equivalent to 10 days here. You'll be able to safely train here for the 15 days we have left before the war," Vermouth muttered and gave Alex a ring. "Do Noah and Nolan train here?" Alex asked. "This place requires resources to operate, and if you spend too much time here, you'll age faster," Vermouth replied and asked Alex to take a look. Alex took out the things from the ring and a bunch of treasures fell out. Alex raised his eyebrows and crouched down to take a look. There were many elixirs along with medicinal herbs. Alex examined the things excitedly, as if he had received gifts for a quick time, and suddenly froze. His eyes widened as he saw a small teardrop-shaped crystal. His hands shook as he held it. "Eyeless tears," Alex muttered in disbelief. His gaze alternated between eyeless tears and Vermouth. Tear of Isle was so valuable that it could be considered a relic. It is the condensed mass of dewdrops from the world tree. A single dewdrop from the tree of life can help break chains and prolong life. And to add more, the tear of Isle in his hand had been imbued with dense fiery mana. The world tree was considered not only a representation of nature but also the embodiment of the goddess herself. Since it was revered as a symbol of Mother Nature, special dewdrops would sometimes form that were imbued with fiery properties that, when assimilated into a body, provide resistance to the corresponding property. "No. I can't accept this. This is too valuable even for me," Alex said and begged Vermouth to take it away. "Alex, we have more. It's something very valuable, but not to the point where we have nothing. You may have more, but do you have any with elemental property besides this one?" Vermouth closed his lips for a moment. "I knew it," Alex said with a sigh. "Please save it for Noah. He might need it in the future." Vermouth shook his head and firmly refuted, "You need this more than he does. Noah had a great deal of treasure with him for protection. More than that, Alex, do you think Noah can handle the painful process of integrating it? The reason it's lying in a corner is that no one is brave enough to pick it up. It would be another thing if it was a rock, water, or wind element, but fire is a troublesome element. Vermouth's words made Alex think for a moment. After going through all sorts of things, he didn't think this would affect him. In this case, thank you for this, Alex gladly accepted. I'd like to start with this first, as you wish, Your Highness. Please bring Rigai here if she asks for me. I'll open this for everyone here. Maybe they can learn something from you. Alex sat cross-legged and drank the elixir in one gulp. Kayak? Alex groaned as he noticed a bitter aftertaste. Alex took several elixirs at once. His throat suddenly felt dry and his body shuddered. Veins bulged all over his body and a strong vitality pulsed through his body. The feeling of his flesh being torn apart was transmitted throughout his body. The muscles in his body began to contract and rapidly expand and contract again and again. Alex, are you okay? You took too many at once. Your body might burst due to excessive consumption. Ha 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 ha, I'm fine. Alex squeezed out the words painfully and took Isla's tear in his hands as he wondered about the suffering he was going to feel. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 457, Tearing the Island 2. Alex picked up the burning Isla tear and held it in his palm as he sat cross-legged. His figure was already flushed red and he was sweating profusely due to the intense pain. Some of the nodes in the vessel were unable to expand and the vessel was torn and the pain was transmitted to the entire body. The internal tearing in the vessels was quite painful and caused blood flow to clot and convulse. Alex would cast a healing spell on himself at regular intervals when the situation was quite dire. Vermouth, who was monitoring the entire situation, suddenly felt his scales go numb as he watched Alex take the Isla tear. Boom! Fire spread and engulfed Alex from all sides. The temperature around Alex rose by several degrees and a terrifying explosion of burning mana spread everywhere and caused even the ground to burn. Hey, Alex, what are you doing? Vermouth asked in a panicked tone and was ready to interrupt at any moment if something went wrong. He had already prepared tons of healing elixir. From the description of the training, Vermouth knew that it was quite dangerous and challenged the extreme limit of a mental state. But now, seeing the scene through his eyes, he felt a chill run down his spine. Usually, Allah's tears were in the form of dew that was used to brew potions and elixirs. If it's in a condensed and crystallized form, it's broken up and ground into pieces and then a pinch is used in a potion and taken. But this man is drawing the mana directly into his body, which is invading his vessel and even burning Alex's skin. Crazy, he muttered to himself and screamed. Alex, stop, you're going to die, Vermouth muttered, rushing to extinguish the flames. Stop, stop, a painful voice was heard from the dense fire, forcing Vermouth to stop. Vermouth stared at the scene in disbelief and stood with his jaw hanging open. Alex's entire body was on fire. Alex's short hair was burned and he became bald, and the top layer of Alex's skin had already been burned and charred. When the gentle wind blew, the charred skin turned into ashes and was blown away by the wind, beneath which burned muscles appeared along with blood oozing out from all sides. Alex activated the blessings and his body repeatedly healed and regenerated after being burned. The torturous process was repeated over and over again. Alex bit his lips and gritted his teeth to stop the loss of consciousness. His vision blurred and all of his muscles were begging for the process to be stopped. I can't lose consciousness or I might die for real, Alex muttered to himself and clenched his fist tightly. The Isla Terror allowed him to not only increase his mana, but he can also work harder on his body and muscles while burning away all the impurities present in his body. Furthermore, his rapidly regenerating skin and muscles would become tougher and firmer, as would his mana, which would increase by leaps and bounds after absorbing the Isla year. His body was already numb due to the rapid influx of pain from all parts of the body. Vermouth gulped down his saliva. His back was drenched in sweat and his heart was pounding wildly. Just watching the horrifying scene was difficult for him. It looked so painful that many might even faint just by witnessing the scene. Boom! A part of Alex's body abruptly exploded, causing Vermouth to flinch backwards. A twisted mass of flesh emerged and began to take the shape of a limb, and a few moments later another explosion occurred. Soon, a series of explosions began to happen one after another, and Alex's torture session continued along with Vermouth, whose legs went soft as he noticed the splashes of bones and flesh again and again. At Leonhardt, preparations for the impending war were in full swing. Have you checked the equipment? How is it? I want our men to be equipped with the best equipment we have, Catherine said. I've given you the best we had at our disposal. Are you doubting me? Yvonne asked, raising her eyebrows. Catherine smiled and said, did I say I'm doubting you? I'm just asking Christina to do one last check, Catherine said and stared at Christina. As usual, when the two of them argued, Christina was busy sharpening her sword. After Alex left, what little color had been painted in her world seemed to have faded away, and she had returned to her previous state where she was absorbed in training or sharpening her weapons while preparing for the upcoming battles. It seemed as if she faithfully performed her duty every day, and there was nothing else in the world she could spare time for. How much are you going to polish it, Christina? Catherine asked with a helpless look. Until I'm satisfied, Christina muttered. This sword is no ordinary artifact. It was the weapon blessed by the goddess of war. I am not able to wield it and draw out its full power, but at its peak, it is said that my father cut through the entire line of defense in one slash, Christina muttered with a sad expression. That licking dog was hopelessly in love with his sword because of its reputation. Wait, Yvonne felt her brain freeze upon hearing Christina's words for a moment. Did Shen get that sword? She asked with a confused expression as she felt that something was off about the story. No, what he got is a cheap copy of this. Not the original. My father sealed its power and sent it back secretly, Christina replied with a bitter expression. Did he know about it? Catherine asked with a wary look. Who knows? Christina muttered and shrugged. The reason he's trying to kill me is that he thinks he can't use the power until he's dead. Poor thing, drowning in fantasies. Yvonne laughed. Christina, you're going to lead the troops tomorrow. You should take a nice nap today, Catherine coaxed. Christina put down her sword and asked with a unique expression. Catalina, are we going to use that gunpowder and the weapons made from it? Catherine didn't have a definite answer and pondered for a moment. Alex had locked himself away in training, so I didn't want to disturb him, and Rhea said that all the decisions were in my hands, but you know the thing is a bit special. I don't think it's the time for that, Yvonne rebutted. You'll find all kinds of scum there. They might try to investigate and will attract too much attention from everyone. Catherine looked at the expressions of Yvonne and Christina, who nodded their heads. Well, we'll leave that for now. Christina, take care of yourself and Athena on the battlefield. And the next day, Christina led the troops towards the Western Front with a parade so that everyone in Leonhardt could see her army. The remaining 15 days passed in the blink of an eye, and another stage was set for a fierce war. Chapter 458, The Four Princes Have Gathered. A heavy rain was pouring down on the place, and the sky was filled with ominous dark clouds. In the rain, the vegetation shone brightly as the grass and ground were soaked by the rain. The peaceful scene looked like it was going to sing the praises of vitality and life forever. However, it only took a moment for the peace to be shattered into pieces. Beyond the vegetation was a dense grassland filled with a thick dark fog, with countless dangers lurking within. A dense miasma hovered over the surface, making it difficult for onlookers to see. The Western Front's defense lines and all of its vast terrain had long been occupied by demons. The miasma made infiltration and reconnaissance of the place difficult. Unless there were clerics and priests in the group, it was certain death if one entered it. It was for this reason that the attack was delayed. Fighters from all kingdoms were called upon to contribute to the national army. Now, it was a war of prestige and a chance to shine in Kinley's history. Wooden fences and barriers had been put up. The church staff were already working to remove the miasma. Along with Ophelia, the current saint of Kinley, Athena and Lena, who was striving to become a saint, were dedicated to supporting Kinley's troops. Meanwhile, inside the huge tent, the representatives of all the kingdoms from level 1 to level 3 were present. Alongside them, there were also some high nobles of Kinley. The emperor had moved nearly 2/5 of Kinley's forces, showing the importance he placed on this war, and he might be watching this war through the shadows as he inspected the performance of each and every one. For the lower nobles and people from the lower level kingdoms, it was a stifling atmosphere, as no matter how much they were respected in their kingdom, they were nothing here. The meetings were presided over by the four princes who watched everyone with stern gazes. First Prince Sean, mid-mythic rank and age 31. Second Prince Hex, early mythic rank and age 30. Third Prince William, peak legendary rank and age 28. Fourth Prince Sachian, early legendary at age 27. Each of them was a monster in their league. The blood flowing in the Stan royal family carried the blood of the gods, which was said to have tremendous potential. The main reason Alex was considered the shame of the royal family and disowned was that he did not have the blood of God flowing through him when he was examined in the bloodlineage ceremony held to awaken the bloodline. But his recent development had shocked everyone, and many believe that it was due to the sudden awakening of the Stan bloodline in his veins, causing him to undergo tremendous changes. But sadly, that rising star was cut short before it could shine brightly in the sky alongside his wife Raya. After Alex, the other prince who was most famous for his notoriety and bad reputation was fourth Sachian. Although he was very talented, he was known to be a traitor and a playboy who wasted his time chasing and trampling on beauty. No one knew how many young maidens had been discarded and disappeared after falling into the traps of his appearance. And also, unlike others, he never tried to maintain his image because in his eyes, everyone is nothing more than ants that can be trampled like ants. The only reason he was able to hold his head high was that his mother's family had the second most influence in noble society and had great support for him. All the princes had been dispatched, and even the 3 princesses except Alice were assigned to take charge of the resources. The sudden movement made everyone wonder if the Shining One might be one step closer in the succession war. The atmosphere was rather tense and cold. Sean, as the first prince, took the lead, resting his hands on the map and looking at everyone. We have close to 1 million warriors gathered with us who will participate in a brutal war to reclaim our lands tomorrow. The first prince of Kinley, as ordered by the emperor, would take charge of the warrior troop and Josh would be in charge of the mage squad. First and foremost, we will form a formation and a defense line. We don't know what's hidden there, so we have to create a strong defensive line and preventative measures. Hex stepped forward and raised his chin. I will assign some mages to maintain the barrier during the war, and I will oversee the defense line. Third Prince William spoke and stepped forward. Sachian listened to everything with a carefree look and seemed to be quite bored. He doesn't think the demons will hold back any troops and could be easily wiped out if Kinley were to get serious. Instead, his eyes scanned all the beauties present and upon seeing them he licked his lips, wondering who to choose next. This is the plan, Sean shouted. Lady Athena along with the saint and others will take the lead and clear the miasma. The paladins of the churches and all the priests are in charge of supporting us. Unless they are attacked, they will not draw their weapons. Keep that in mind. Sean discusses the strategy with the others and asks everyone to pay due attention. Everyone exchanged statements one after another as they looked for flaws in the strategies. Under Sean's command, 3 generals would command the troops and representatives of the kingdoms would lead the troops under their command. Any questions? Sean asked. Seeing that no one raised their hands, Sean nodded and spoke. Tomorrow we will have to get rid of those filthy demons invading our homeland. There will be many sacrifices and many will abandon us when the wars end, but we must not be discouraged, and more than that we must not forget those who sacrificed their lives for the nobles. And now, does anyone have any questions? Then, let's end this here, Sean said, and everyone began to disperse. The representatives of the kingdoms along with other personnel began to move to calm down before the war. While everyone stayed, Shen, who was behind Hex, walked towards Christina, who was thinking about something. Hello, Lady Christina. Christina's expression hardened upon seeing Shen. Gritting her teeth, she briefly nodded and asked, What do you wish, General? Madam, aren't you being too rude to your father's college? Instead of calling me General, you can just call me Uncle. Christina felt like she had been stabbed with a dagger that was being sprinkled with salt. The people leaving the place suddenly stopped in their tracks and paused to watch the drama unfolding. A subtle killing intent radiated from it. Shen chuckled and whispered, Madam Christina, aren't you too shameless? Isn't it because of your traitorous husband that we're in this kind of situation? If he had reported all of this earlier instead of jumping into the pit by himself, the Imperial Army might have been able to resist the invasion if they had been notified earlier. Shen spoke weakly, but his words were picked up by everyone and caused everyone to whisper amongst themselves, wondering whether it was true or not. Everyone's gaze fell on Christina, whose eyes were burning with hatred. She clenched her sword tightly, wanting to stab the man before her. She bit her lips to the point that drops of blood could be seen. Christina knew that she had never been good with the words and that she always spoke with her sword. And now Shen was taking this opportunity to humiliate her and sow discord among the others. Still, she calmed herself down and tried to fight back. General Shen, isn't this your responsibility? As a general, you should have reported this to the capital, but you didn't, eh? What do you mean? Shen feigned ignorance. I wasn't informed of it through any means. As you know, the mana signals are cut off. This just shows how incompetent you are. Christina snapped at Shen, whose expression was a little distorted. Calming himself down, he was about to say something but Sean stopped him. Are you all challenging my authority? Do you think you have the right to declare whether Alex is a traitor or not? Investigations are still ongoing, so stop talking nonsense. Shen, who was watching the scene with an amused expression, frowned upon seeing Sean take Alex's side, but let it go after that whole bastard was dead. Sir, it's just a matter of time before, Sean roared in anger and fixed his aura on Shen. We don't have time to listen to your baseless accusations and jokes. If you want to pull this kind of shit here, then get out of this place and use your free time to organize your troops. Shen wanted to refute but stopped when he received a sharp glare from Hex. Disperse, Sean shouted and everyone started running so as not to offend Sean, who was first in line for the throne. As everyone left, Christina sighed and tried to calm the burning anger swelling in her chest and walked out with a blank expression and was brought out of her thoughts by a light whisper beside her. Lady Christina, I heard that you are now a widow, so why don't we think about marrying someone else? Your previous marriage was forced, but this time you will be able to find eternal happiness. Christina's heart froze and she looked towards the source of the voice to see Shen looking at her with a lustful gaze. Not only that, the person wasn't trying to hide his intentions. All of Alex's wives were heaven-defying beauties, and since the marriage was granted by the Emperor, the people's persuasion stopped and they were left alone. As many think that Alex is dead now, nothing stops them from now chasing them. Christina felt her heart swell. Just because Alex was imprisoned, these people were trying to humiliate her. I'll think about it after the war. I have other things to do. Christina tries to leave but Shen smiled and spoke. There was also a girl like you who was quite stubborn and didn't agree with my words, but now you see where she is? Not even her corpse survived. Shen spoke with a sad expression. Shen, do you also have too much free time? Shen was stopped by Sean, who left and gave Christina a mischievous smile. Don't worry about them. Christina looked at the onlooker and saw Sean walking towards her with a piercing gaze. That man isn't going to live long, Sean muttered weakly as he walked past her and left a message for her. Ask him to hurry up, we may need him here more than ever. Chapter 459, Worried Uneasiness. Knock. 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 The sound of soft footsteps broke the silence of the night. With a stifled expression, Christina walked with a vacant expression. Countless thoughts appeared in her mind, weighing her down. Walking forward, she arrived before the temporarily built church. She looked at it with an uneasy expression. Athena had left early and was said to have confined herself there for the past 4 days for unknown reasons. Christina arrived yesterday and had been very busy so far, so after finishing her chores, she decided to stop by. 2 legendary ranked paladins stood at the door and stopped Christina. Lady Athena had asked us to deny entry to anyone, that? Can you send her a message about my arrival? The paladins looked at each other in confusion for a moment. They knew the relationship between the two, but Athena had given orders to prevent anyone from approaching her. Lady Christina, we cannot do that. Lady Athena's orders are absolute. Christina sighed and was about to take a step back when she heard a voice from inside. Let her in. Christina felt that the voice was unusual, and after getting confirmation, she pushed open the door to enter. The doors slammed shut. The hallway inside was quite dark. Christina swept her gaze around and found Athena sitting on the stairs in front of the goddess statue with a pale expression. Christina panicked upon seeing her state and ran towards her shouting, Athena, why are you in this state? Did someone attack you? Are you sick? Christina called her name and picked her up. Athena looked at Christina with a blank expression and muttered, Christina, I've been feeling a little uneasy lately, as if something bad was going to happen. Christina frowned and her hands that were holding Athena trembled a little. The words muttered from Athena's lips were no joking matter, and besides, she had never seen such a depressed look on Athena's face. Athena had always had an intuition about what was going to happen, yet her expression had never wavered, and she had always had that strong and reliable gaze that had always supported them. But seeing her helpless state, Christina felt a lump in her throat draw words out. Athena, what's wrong? Athena's gaze tilted and fell on the statue of the goddess Rebecca. Whenever I feel uneasy, I pray to the goddess. When I surrender to the goddess, my heart calms and cools. It was like she was telling me not to worry and to let nature take its course, but this time, I didn't feel that way. My prayers aren't being answered. The connection I always felt with her seemed to be waning. Christina's heart raced and a sense of urgency flashed across her eyes. Is she abandoning you, or is the power of divinity within you waning? No, rather I feel like she's avoiding this moment. It's like she doesn't know what's going to happen, or maybe there's something more, Athena murmured and hugged Christina, showing a vulnerable side she had never shown to anyone. Her body instinctively sought warmth, and the back of the man who was always in front of her resurfaced in her mind. Alex, I hope you come back soon. No, we need you, a helpless tone echoed in the empty voice filled with unease. The horse's hooves mercilessly stomped on the ground that was slowly starting to dry out after the rain. The procession of horses led by the cavalry along with the soldiers formed deep hoof prints on the ground. The sunlight shone on the lances that pointed towards the sky, and the winds made the flags flutter aggressively. It was a huge army filled with shining knights in armor that appeared in the childhood dreams of many. Fully armored soldiers armed with various weapons advanced along the road without stopping and formed formation along the edges without hesitation. The demonic invasion was in full swing. Although one couldn't see through the thick fog, one could see a terrifying breath radiating from the place covered in dark mist. Athena stood right in front, and he tightly gripped his staff and looked around with a cold face brimming with confidence. The day before, there had been no expression of helplessness, only a strong being left whose very presence made one aware of the existence of the blessing of the goddess who had sent such an angel to the world. Beside her stood the current saint of Kinley, Ophelia, but she knew that she was a saint in name only, and the one who would exert a strong influence was none other than Athena. And then there was Lena. Although she was smiling, she was cursing as she looked at Athena. Her beautiful appearance hides a poisonous tongue within. How long will I have to take orders from this bitch? I hope she dies here. Athena stepped forward and recited the prayer. The priests and clergy behind her recited the words spoken by her. Goddess, please grant us the power to face the crisis and walk the arduous path without taking a step back. Please watch the footsteps of these gentle lambs who have stepped forward to carry out your will and bring glory to the world that sings the praises of your presence. Amen. Athena's eyes flashed and her hair stood up and fluttered, giving off an unearthly glow. She raised her staff and slammed it down on the ground. The jewel embedded at the top of the staff emitted a golden glow along with every priest standing behind her, and then a warm light enveloped her and began to radiate around her. Swoosh! Swoosh! The golden light spread out like a shockwave and struck the dark mist of miasma, sweeping it away and dispersing it into nothingness. While all this was happening, Sean stepped forward and shouted. The knights stepped forward while maintaining formation. Take out your weapons and prepare to attack. Don't be too hasty. First, observe your enemies. Sean was a war veteran, so he knew the danger that awaited him. The other side might attack them as soon as they lose their cover, so it was best to attack first. Soon, the cover was blown and images of the enemies resurfaced, causing Sean to stop his trail. Thousands of dark red eyes lit up behind a dark veil. For before him stood an army of monsters waiting to wreak havoc. Chapter 460, Fight me if you have the guts. Kurg, Kuag, a demon's laughter erupted into laughter and echoed through the place. Men of Kinley's, it took you too long to start the war. The demon stood with one hand behind his back while the other held a dark staff. He looked around with a mocking smile. Allow me to present to you a show that we have been preparing for a long time. Let the slaughter begin. The demon burst into laughter and gave his order, after which the ground began to shake. His orders were obeyed not only by the demon armies, but by a group of monstrous beings that stood before the Kinley armies in large numbers. The undead began to rise as the demon staff ignited. Dark-faced monsters, undead and death knights, ghouls with torn skin and broken armor along with dark and shadowy creatures seemed to be standing in an orderly manner and obeying the orders of the demons who seemed to be behind, and we were calmly watching the scene. The group of monsters that was in front charged towards the army. Hex waved his staff and shouted, "Attack them!" Projectiles of various colors clouded the sky and fell like rain. "Fire the arrows!" William shouted and took an arrow and began to fire the arrows. Poong! Poda! Poda! A torrent of arrows began to fall from the sky. The arrows aimed towards the sky changed their projectiles towards the ground and pointed their sharp edges towards the sea of beasts. Boom! 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 Following the arrows, a barrage of spells struck them, causing chaos all around. The group of monsters and other undead were destroyed. Athena and the 1,000 clerics combined their power and fired them towards the undead, sweeping them away. The monsters were of a high level and each of them could cause devastating damage, but they all turned to blood, most of them under the power of Kinley's forces. Although the attacks went on for hours, it seemed like there was no end to the number of monsters. Kinley's forces positioned themselves on top of the highlands to have a clear view of the enemy. Every time a monster died, a dark fog formed followed by dust that clouded the vision. The bombardment of spells by the mages and the rain of arrows managed to keep the monsters, beasts, and undead at bay for a long time, but now the horde was appearing near them. When the horde faced them, that would be the start of the true battle. But before that, a freezing aura radiated out and chunks of ice merged together to form a single point and began to grow in size. The continuous cold aided their growth. After using the monsters as scapegoats, the demon deployed his mages to counter Kinley's. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Icicles began to fly in unison, and the large mass that came with its gigantic size headed towards Kinley's front line with a destructiveness that only those who were hit by it could imagine. Crackle, crackle. Large masses of fire hovered above Kinley's forces ready to burn everything in range, but their target was not Kinley's forces. Zoo, zoo. Fireballs shot forward and collided with the icicles flying towards Kinley's forces. Strong flames danced and hot streams poured over the monsters, annihilating them. A dense fog and mist occupied the vision. However, among the monsters, a new troop appeared who raised their shields and dashed through the gaps, skillfully avoiding the attacks and rushing towards the knight's line. It was the demon army that charged towards the knights with a devilish grin. The border soldiers were taken by surprise seeing the demons appear out of nowhere, but they were experienced enough to know how to proceed in this situation. Maintaining formation, they faced a demon army who might be few in number at first, but soon their numbers began to increase. Clammo, clammo, clammo. A cold aura radiated as the demons drew closer. An explosion of mana erupted as the swords clashed. Shield-clacking trinkets rang out. Screams and screams could be heard as the battle began in earnest. Ugh! One of the demons howled as it fell to the ground, and a massive foot stomped on it. Hiss! An arrow shot towards the man holding it in his bare hands and shattered it into pieces. Bloody demon! Antoine roared and leapt towards the archer with a giant leap. Before the archer demon could back away, Antoine appeared behind him and grabbed the demon's neck with one hand and pulled on the horn with the other. Up! The demon winced in pain and blood poured out of the hole. Antoine squeezed the neck and launched. Antoine tilted his body and saw an aura in front of him. However, before he could attack, a bloody figure appeared and blocked it. Bam! Bam! He faced the demon swordsman as he screamed, "Antoine, you son of a bitch! You could have died by now, Ben. Who did you take me for? He can't even hurt my hair," Antoine snorted as he wiped the blood from his forehead. Antoine raised his axe and swung it. Large gusts of wind with sharp edges attacked the nearby demon. Antoine's killing spree suddenly stopped as he was hit by a heavy force that pushed him away. Antoine gasped in pain and blood poured from his lips as he saw the giant hammer hitting him out of nowhere. He looked up and saw a minotaur approaching the hammer with a haughty look. "Fight me if you have the guts." Antoine spat out the blood and threw the axe to the ground with a cold look and muttered tonelessly, "Guts, I have more than enough." Bang! Antoine launched himself towards the minotaur with a stomp. Bang! Shockwaves swept through everyone nearby and metal rubbed against each other as two bulky beings danced across the blood-filled battlefield. Chapter 461, Internal Conflict. Antoine crushed the minotaur's head and decapitated it after tearing off its limbs. The bull-headed demon was certainly strong, but not to that level where it could pose a threat to him. Antoine, who took a step forward, suddenly felt a tingling in his senses and immediately reacted by raising his axe to protect himself. Spike! Antoine struck the arrow that was charged with mana and exploded after coming into contact. When the dust dispersed, Antoine's intact figure appeared and he looked around with bloodshot eyes. The arrow was coming from behind and it was the one his forces used. Because he had won the fight, he had let his guard down a little and it was quite difficult for him to sense the arrow coming from somewhere. He didn't expect it. His blood boiled with anger and he stared at the archer group and roared in rage. "Who is that bastard who shot me?" His roar only caused the archers and soldiers fighting around him to look at him for just a moment, but soon they all turned back to face the enemy. One of the soldiers walked past Antoine and said, "It must be a mistake, don't lose focus." Antoine was about to rebut when he was attacked by another demon that charged straight towards him. Funny, swallowing the bitterness in his heart, he prepared to face the demon without realizing that he wasn't the only one suffering like this. Ben leapt onto the corpse while brandishing his sword. He was surrounded by a group of undead led by the Death Knight. As he faced the Death Knight, he felt a sword on his back and retracting his sword he jumped to the side immediately. A huge sword struck the Death Knight, almost breaking his hand. "What the hell?" Ben shouted. I'm sorry, I was just trying to help after seeing you fight. Are you blind? I was winning. Ben's words were abruptly cut off as undead filled with skeletons attacked them from all sides. Situations similar to this were occurring around Leonhardt's soldiers. At first, they considered it a coincidence and thought it was due to lack of teamwork, but then they realized that someone had their sights on them and was trying to take them away with the enemies. Each force of the kingdom was assigned a particular region to fight in. There may be mix-ups due to the chaos, but it's still the new faces they found among them that they never met. The most frustrated was Albert, who was unable to face the monster. He wanted to take care of a large damaged area, but the bugs were standing between him and implicating him by interfering in his battles. If it were another situation, he would have surely frozen or killed them, but he can't make a mistake in such a dangerous situation where great damage could occur due to his mistake, so he tried to suppress his resentment for now. The kingdom commander who was coordinating the troops with a smile looked to the side and froze as he felt a deadly chill radiating from the woman beside him. Christina's eyes became sharp as if she could burn holes into enemies with her gaze. Her murderous aura was slowly increasing without stopping. Looking at the situation, he sighed as he turned his head towards the commander beside him. Is this how you want to play? Cyan smiled mischievously and said, What are you implying, Lady Christina? We are fighting for our lives. How can you treat us like we are playing games? Another commander said with a sneer. Christina stared at them. I ask you one last time. Do you want to continue? Please speak clearly, Lady Christina. We cannot understand your circular conversations, Christina muttered, closing her eyes and taking a deep breath. It's fine if you don't understand. It's better to show you rather than talk. With a stomp, Christina's figure jolted towards the battlefield. The commander frowned and looked curiously at Christina as he felt a bad feeling in his heart. Christina landed on the battlefield and killed her, reaching a high point where her troops could see her. She swung her sword, radiating a strong and bright aura that caught everyone's attention. There are some bugs here that are hindering us, so isn't it better to get rid of them? Christina's voice amplified and a strange smile appeared on Leonhardt's troops. Ben's heart was boiling with excitement as he waited for Christina's next order. To begin with, all they needed was a simple gesture, and now that they have it, they can wipe out the pests. Christina raised her palm, slapped it on the shoulder blade, and then squeezed. Many soldiers watching her were stunned by the sign, unable to make it out. Only Leonhardt's forces knew what the sign meant. Christina made a series of hand signs, and the formation around the face instantly changed. The first sign called for everyone to form a group of 10, and as the Leonhardts immediately moved, those who were strangers to them were left alone. Segregating the others, but being mindful of those attacking them, they began to counterattack. Ben, who was fighting the Death Knights, could sense the man approaching. As the man behind him waits for Ben to make a move, Ben's image blurs and appearing behind him, he kicks that man towards the Death Knight, whose sword struck him as he was caught off guard. Antoine, who was swinging his axe, suddenly stumbled and a wind blade was thrown back and crashed into the soldiers, sending them flying. Albert raised his sword, covering it in an icy aura that erupted around him, freezing everyone within the radius. The soldiers interfering in the battle were frozen along with the demons. As Albert destroyed the demon sculptures, the monsters around the place tried to take advantage of the opportunity of the frozen soldiers in the statue. Leonhardt's soldiers pushed the others to the front while staying at a safe distance. The entire hunter and prey scenario was reversed. Christina took a step back and gave the commanders a cold glare, causing them to shiver in fear at the sight of her ruthless tactics. Your troops seem to be quite useless, Christina spat coldly, causing the commander's face to swell in anger, but no words came out from him as his troops were attacked. Enough, do you think you'll be able to escape like this? One of the commanders shouted. Oh, what do you mean? It's clear that your troops are quite weak in taking on the enemies, plus there's no proper coordination between them, Christina muttered and her aura erupted enclosing them. The commander's face turned pale as they were no match for Christina. Even if everyone dies, what does it matter? It just means that they aren't capable enough to protect themselves. Stop all this. Did you force us to do all this? Cyan muttered while sweating profusely. He didn't doubt that they might die if Christina turned her back on them because the enemies were quite strong. I'll tell you her name, Cyan cried out in embarrassment. Christina's lips curved upwards as she spoke. I don't need to, because I already know. Chapter 462, Victory had already been decided. Flames burned everywhere. Needles were stuck all over the person's body. His veins swelled and mana swirled around him and was sucked out as if there was a black hole. All the pores on his body seemed to be open, and mana was absorbed by them and transmitted into the body. Alex spat out a mouthful of dark, lumpy substance and got rid of all the impurities his body had accumulated over the month. Terrifying gusts swept through the entire place and a reddish mana completely enveloped him, filled with destructiveness. He opened his eyes and flashed, and soon his body that radiated flames unexpectedly disappeared along with the stoppage of the flow of mana. For a moment, everything returned to nothingness as if he was an ordinary man without any power or mana. And soon a crimson appeared above his head which soon disappeared along with the mana. But only Alex knew how strong he had become. He had burned his flesh and pushed his muscles beyond the limit of human endurance. Using the elixirs had greatly expanded his mana capacity, which he further improved by using poison treatment to get rid of the waste circulating in his abilities. He only had a small breakthrough. Although there were no changes to his realm, the improvement he had achieved here was beyond advancing into a realm, and more than that, he was able to condense more mana into his core, turning it into a small red-hot sun that stored the fiery mana, and was also one step closer to creating his technique. Astral Starlight. The technique he had invented was to take advantage of the sudden inspiration when dealing with the goddess of war, although he is far from entering stage 1 of it. Instead of rushing to achieve it, he honed all of his skills and practiced those that he couldn't use before due to his limited strength. Alex stood up from his seat and stretched his body a little. Alex raised his fist and with a smile, he clenched his fist. Swish! He took a stance and threw a punch towards the sky. As he did so, the sound of air being torn apart could be heard, followed by a cracking sound similar to breaking a sound barrier. Aumm. Oops. Alex muttered as he looked at the damage occurring in the sky. Very close to the place where the battle was taking place, a dense amount of demonic and dark energy intervened with each other. The place looked like a sight descended from hell with a suffocating aura. There was no vegetation on this land. Everything from the ground to the air was black and gave off a rotten, disgusting smell. It looked like an abyss filled only with the filth of the world. The defense line fortress that humans had inhabited and used by Kinley's forces had now become a breeding ground for monsters and a resting place for demons. So, in the end, you're telling me that those who are fighting with Kinley are slowly crumbling? The demon in charge of the entire operation stared at the two individuals standing before him. Halton, who was in charge of the border, took command against Kinley's forces and now hung his head low as if he had committed a grave sin, while the other stood tall with a haughty attitude and without any concern. Angelina smiled seductively and said, "What can you expect from this incompetent man? Both you and your bottom are useless." Halton felt the blood rush to his head and shouted, "Angelica, don't you dare. An old hag is too disgusting to turn anyone on. You're too ugly for my brother to get up." "What did you say?" "Say it again and see if I don't crush your ball," Angelina shouted with a distorted expression. "Shut up both of you," Big shouted angrily. "Our army is just like the other side's and we have those monsters on top of that. Why are we staying behind? Why are you asking me? My team is doing just fine. My troops are keeping Arkham under control, unlike this idiot." Angelica snorted and folded her head onto his chest, causing both of his large assets to jiggle. The succubus was enjoying drinking the blood of the enemies on the battlefield, but she had to come here because of this man's sudden call. Halton stepped forward and tried to appease Big's anger. "The reason we're losing is because of that former saint of the humans. Her presence is quite overbearing. Her aura weakens the miasma and the undead, as well as suppresses our demonic energy while also healing the wounded. It's too difficult to handle her alone, and with the support of the one behind her, it's hard for us to get close. I've heard that her beauty transcends humanity. I'd like to taste her flesh and blood," Angelica said as she licked her lips seductively. "Why is this bitch always in heat? I wish someone would tame her and leave her a mess until she begs." Halton muttered, gritting his teeth. Big pinched his forehead due to the headache his pesky subordinates were giving him. "Kinley has deployed the mythic ranks," Halton shook his head. "Then use the darkness pill and ask everyone to aim for it. Try to destroy the church members as much as you can, but there's no need to take too many risks. Our main target is Athena. Please use the mythic ranks as well if necessary." "Can I go?" Angelica asked with a curt expression. "No, why? Is there no problem on my end?" Angelica spoke in a tone of voice. "Since there are no problems, finish things on the Arkham side as quickly as possible. Then you can fight with Kinley and have as much fun as you can." "Fun?" "Yes, Angelica shouted as if she was a girl who was forced to stay in her room and was finally allowed to go out. "Hey, you limp little head. Wait for me a moment, you." Halton wanted to scream but couldn't help but see the madness on her face that sent shivers down his spine. "I'll finish everything quickly and then we'll have some fun. We'll capture that girl and have some fun with her. We'll have a nice, enjoyable time torturing the girl who gave us a hard time." Angelica laughed and her brain started to run wild. "I'm taking my leave," Angelica muttered and walked out in a gust of wind. Big gave Halton a pitiful look and muttered, "Don't listen to her and finish things as quickly as possible." "Yes sir." Halton nodded and left. Big's expression changed as his two subordinates retreated. Crossing his arms, he walked towards the basement with a sinister expression. Fight as much as you want." Walking into the place where dozens of grotesque figures were kept behind glass, he smiled cruelly and looked at the thing in the huge laboratory. "Victory's already decided. Unless you intervene, which you won't, you are all mere lambs waiting to be slaughtered by me." Ha 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 ha. Chapter 463, I am not a weed that grows in a glass house. The morale among Kinley's forces wasn't good. It was only natural since most of them had fought with the discarded armies rather than the demons' enemies. The casualties weren't that great, but who knows to what extent this state could be maintained? The demons had a large number of necromancers who utilized the undead who had been dying on the battlefield. Since these cowards were staying at the rear, things were becoming difficult to handle. Even if Kinley's forces managed to cause severe damage, the demons were making up for the numbers somehow. On the other hand, Kinley's forces maintained their numbers as they stayed close to the artificial barriers and were only attacked. Since they didn't have much knowledge about the other side, Sean didn't push his troops into a death trap and the stalemate continued. It was also the same with the demons who were searching for a way to break Kinley's formation. "This is the summary of the damage we've suffered so far. There aren't many casualties," Ian complained, wondering why the situation was so tense. Another person helping him said, "I think it's time to move forward. We have Lady Athena and Saintus covering our backs. Yeah, let's stop being cowards. We should fight our way through those filthy demons." As usual, Ian spoke with a haughty look looking at everyone. Normally Sean would have asked him to shut up, but the situation was as it seemed. They have to break through somehow. A prolonged war will only benefit the demons, who will feed on the corpses of our men and turn them into undead. "Where are Hex and William?" His Highness Sean is maintaining the magic formation while His Highness William is controlling the front lines. Sean nodded and thought for a moment. "Ask Hex to expand the magic formation. Call out more magicians. Ask William to prepare the troops and head out. We will attack this time." I also asked some mythical ranked knights to accompany him. "Any suggestions?" Sean asked and looked at everyone in the tent. One of the generals stepped forward and said, "Your Highness, we should ask for more troops to be on alert and increase our patrol. I think the demons might act suspicious and attack us by surprise." "Do it, Your Highness. I think we should burn the corpse of the deceased as well. This way, the necromancer would not use the death toll to his advantage." "Prepare a graveyard and ask a squad to collect the corpse. Also ask Lady Athena to prepare thoroughly. We need her support more than ever. Strengthen her security." Tisk. Ian clicked his tongue and muttered, "Why are we wasting soldiers on her when she's already protected by the paladins and those so-called goddesses? If she's the daughter of the goddess, why did she need protection?" Ian expressed his dissatisfaction. Everyone knew of Ian's hatred towards Alex and anyone involved with him, yet it was still too much to show hatred in this kind of situation. Sean sighed, gave Ian a cold glance, and muttered, "That's because she's not useless like you who's roaming around the battlefield." The front lines advanced relentlessly, crushing all opponents in their path. Guillermo commanded his troops and a few notable individuals who led the front to break through the approaching horde of enemies, and the gap that was created was widened by the flowers. The troops charging towards the necromancers faced heavy resistance from the undead troops. Dark mists followed by blasts of curses thrown by the black mages and necromancers hit them in an attempt to stop their attack. A warm golden light bathed them and guided their way, neutralizing as many enemy attacks as possible. Still, some of them managed to break through and attack the troops. Explosion! Explosion! The soldiers hit by the curses groaned in pain and fell down. The curses caused great damage, and if it weren't for the holy light shining on them, they would surely be dead. Each of them was provided with holy water in the canteen which they poured on their wounds. In the middle of the group were a large number of priests holding hands. "We lost effectiveness due to Lena's absence. That two-faced bitch retreated as soon as she heard we were going to charge into the enemy, Ophelia complained with a dissatisfied tone. She knew that Lena was a profit-seeker who hid a venomous face under her veil, even though she still abandoned the front and went to the rear to personally treat the wounded, which she always hated was just a way to stay away from danger. Enough, Ophelia, the goddess is watching. Whether she is right or wrong, the goddess will punish her. At least she is doing some service at the rear, Athena said with a wide smile. Sister Athena, you always forgive that girl. Who knows if she is treating others or just relaxing and wasting time? Athena shook her head with a smile and looked at the deadly battlefield. An intense war had been going on and blood was spilling everywhere like water. Athena's gaze, which was scanning the entire battlefield, suddenly noticed that something was wrong. A frown appeared on her face and she abruptly shouted, surprising Ophelia and the other priests beside her. Ophelia, take the others and step back, get away from me. I can't do that. I need to support you, Ophelia, listen to what I'm telling you. There's no time to argue. Quickly retreat as soon as possible, Athena spoke with a cold gaze that made Ophelia shudder. She wanted to voice her thoughts but seeing Athena's gaze, she knew something bad was going to happen. Ophelia followed Athena's instructions and led the priests away from Athena. Meanwhile, William, who was leading the movement, started to feel uneasy. What are you worried about, Your Highness? A man standing beside William asked. Don't you think things are going too smoothly according to plan? We've gotten this far too easily, William replied, feeling like it was a trap as the battle continued, and he finally figured out what was going on, but it was too late. I outcry, Clamo. Clamo. Kinley's elite fighters blocked the barrage of arrows flying at them, but something passed by them, and they were unable to react quickly. Yuck, ag, control, groans could be heard from the place and soldiers began to fall. A dark aura swept through them, and everyone opened their eyes as the demons shrouded in darkness charged at them. Be careful, these demons are weird. The soldiers didn't stop moving, rather they tried to aggressively attack the new group, but those who couldn't react quickly were easily trampled. As they blocked the claws that were aimed at them, another claw passed by them appearing from its body, and soon they saw the shadow demon's ability to make many weapon-like hands. They manifested themselves violently and ferociously, rampaging around the place. The situation worsened to the point that the legendary ranks had to step forward, and William had to engage in battle. Put your guard up. Hit them as hard as you can. William gritted his teeth and faced the one that appeared in front of him. Numerous hands attacked him and he found it difficult to react, but who is he? He was the third prince, a legendary rank at the age of 27. The blood of the gods flowed through the veins of the royal members. Pesky insects like this don't stand a chance. Mana surged and he kicked the shadow demon away and leapt into the battlefield. Crackle. Charging his sword, he quickly cut off the upper half of the shadow demon. The mythic rank Knight Hedge also got involved when he sensed the strong mana and suppressed them. Boom. The wind blew as sword clashed with claws. The well-trained knights under William's command began to clear the battlefield. The newly appeared enemy was quite difficult to deal with, but it wasn't at a level that made it impossible for them to fight. William, who slammed his sword down on the shadow demon's head, suddenly tilted his gaze and his eyes widened as he saw a large number of enemies taking advantage of the chaos or sneaking in, and the position they were heading for was towards the group of priests. William's face paled as he suddenly realized something. The enemy's target was never him, but them. The priest was the backbone that the entire army could collapse with. More than that, it was Athena's presence that overshadowed all of the demon strategies, so their main target must be Athena. William pulled out his sword and roared, "Everyone protect Lady Athena, no matter what, don't let those bastards get close to her." William's voice echoed across the battlefield, attracting everyone's attention. A large number of enemies forced their way through without stopping at anything. Some even forced their way through and exploded, wiping out many while making way for others. The legendary ranked paladins rushed forward and tried to defend them. They fought back fiercely, delaying for a while and calling for Athena to escape. Clear sound. Clear sound. Lady Athena, please leave. Our worthless life is nothing compared to yours, a paladin muttered as he pushed the enemy away. However, before they could buy any more time, explosion. Explosion. Explosions occurred, engulfing the paladins in flames, and two black figures rushed towards Athena at high speed. Everyone begins to panic and make their way towards Athena. When the two dark figures reached Athena and were about to extend their claws towards her, her body was hit by an explosion of light. Explosion. Explosion. The two shadowy figures' bodies exploded as something flew through them and then soared into the sky, following which a cold voice echoed out. Did you think of me while the grass was growing in the greenhouse? Not only can I protect myself, but I can also kill cockroaches. A supernatural aura erupted as everyone saw a scepter floating in the air and landed in Athena's hands, shocking everyone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 464, Decimating Everything Along the Way. Any lady who was chosen as a saint candidate had a guard assigned to protect her in secret. Both Ophelia and Lena had protectors who came to save them in times of crisis. Initially, Athena was also assisted by a protector, but this was later removed because beneath the white robes and innocent look lay a fierce warrior. Hiss. When the legendary ranked monsters appeared before Athena, with a speed that could not be seen by the naked eye, Athena threw the scepter which cut through the shadow demons. And floating in the air it returned to her hands. The scepter shone and turned into a spear, and the red jewel embedded in it shone, and dozens of starlights poured out from the robes priestess Athena was wearing disappeared, and a suit of light armor appeared on her body. Her figure was so enchanting that many lost their composure for a moment. Previously, Christina was praised as the flower that bloomed on the battlefield, but seeing Athena in the knight's attire and a strong and sharp gaze caused a deep influence on everyone's hearts. Even the shadow demons were shocked to see the sudden transformation and finally burst out in a scream. What? How? Aside from spending time with Alex, Athena's life consists of two things: prayer and training. In order to stand on his side, she knew that she couldn't be a weak lady in society. She needed to have the ability to protect herself. The paladins and inquisitors of the church use the power of mana and a small amount of divinity to become stronger, but what if someone had divinity like the ocean? For example, the Pope is revered throughout the world and cannot be a weak figure. He needs strength to defend himself, so how can they become stronger if the priests and priestesses have not received training? The answer was divinity. A shortcut to becoming stronger. Divinity is a more potent form of energy that every believer obtains after being blessed by the goddess. One can strengthen the body or increase strength based on the presence of their divinity. But Athena had not relied completely on divinity and had trained both her skills and mana to the maximum. Because of the vast and abundant divinity, no one could guess her realm. In fact, although she does not know how much strength she has, she was certain that she could at least fight on equal terms with a mythic rank. The demons and soldiers looked at her with a confused look. At her response, Athena jumped up from her spot and threw the spear, which shot out like a comet and destroyed a group of demons. The shadow demons were destroyed by the spear that shed light like a bright sun. Athena's figure appeared near them and, looking at everyone around her, she shouted, "I will lead the way, so follow me." What is she trying to do? Why is she advancing and approaching enemy lines? Isn't this suicide? Countless questions ran through everyone's minds, but they were dumbfounded as they asked the question. As everyone's voice was filled with such thoughts, boom! Divinity erupted from Athena's body. The stigma on her back burst forth and four angelic wings appeared on her, making her body shine like a sun that radiated light all around. The undead, monsters, demons, and everything that had darkness within them began to back away as the bright light burned them. Back away. The bodies of the priest and paladin at the back all reacted to the divinity that erupted. A divinity that was a crimson red as if it were blood itself began to erupt, taking over the golden light and giving everyone an eerie feeling. The divinity enveloped the entire place. "I will attack with all my might," Athena spoke in a soft voice, but even that soft voice contained a sense of intimidation, as if it pervaded the entire place. As her hands spread out, all the divinity around her condensed and was absorbed into her hands, forming a spear. A spear with an ominous feeling that stimulated survival instincts. Everyone followed Athena's line of sight, wondering who she was going to attack, and although the front line was occupied with strong enemies, it wasn't to the point that she had to attack so hard that it even gave them chills. And soon their eyes fell on the necromancer and a group of black mages, attacking them from this distance. Just that thought was enough to make William feel his blood run cold. Athena took out the spear and assumed her stance. She wasn't clumsy in any sense, and looked like a warrior who had completely mastered the art of spear throwing. "May you rest in peace after death, amen." Athena's lips curved upwards and her eyes flashed with killing intent. What followed after that was a rapid throw with a speed that couldn't be followed by all eyes. Her hand shot out like a whip, and it was just a simple movement after which the silence lasted only a moment, which was then followed by a roar. A tremendous roar that generates resonant sounds that repeat in everyone's ears and echo throughout space. With the world as a frame, a red line was drawn between 2 points. Everything between Athena and the necromancers abruptly disappeared as divinity shot out of the realm. The land, vegetation, beings, and clouds that obscured the sky as if they had never existed were all erased in a straight line. The spear reached the other side and soon a loud burst of divinity erupted, and everyone's vision went blank due to the eruption of light. And what was reflected in their eyes after this was a pure mass of destruction, with no remains in sight. The glow surrounding Athena disappeared and she fell to the ground. Sweat covered her entire body. "Athena, are you okay?" Christina appeared beside her and supported her. Christina, who was quite far away from there, sensed Athena's divinity and quickly ran over there, wondering if something bad might have happened. "I'm fine. I just got a little tired," Athena said in a tired voice. William quickly snapped out of his thoughts in order to move forward. They had made the breakthrough they needed and now it was only left to keep going. "Wonderful!" shouted the man behind William. William glared at him and shouted, "You should be ashamed of yourself. The things that mythical rankers like you should do are done by the lady who was a saint who shouldn't even know how to fight." William scolded them and looked at Athena curiously. Along with respect for Athena, many mixed feelings towards her flashed in his eyes, making him feel a little uncomfortable. Although Kinley seemed to be in an advantageous position, the other side of the border was actually in disarray. Bang! 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 A constant roar could be heard coming from the battlefield. Because the undead invaded the place and attacked the Arkham army. Arkham's forces may not be as large as Kinley's due to all kinds of losses they've suffered, but still, they weren't weak to the point of being pushed back. The battle was held in a stalemate at first, but the arrival of certain undead forces caught them by surprise. The undead they were fighting against now were none other than the soldiers who had lost their lives in the previous battle against Kinley. Riding a horse and armed with weapons, a man leads the undead army with a half-torn Arkham flag. It was a disgrace. A complete humiliation for them. As much as they wanted to tear them apart, this also made them cry in sadness, and many were so shattered that it took some time for them to attack them. During this time a gap was created which was used by the enemy to penetrate their defenses. The saint and the priests of Arkham were doing their best to support and contain the miasma, which was quite dense and thick. Even if they managed to fight back, they were forced back again by the presence of the succubus, causing many to lose their senses. "Stay! Stay! Stop! We are on the same side." The weak-willed ones whose levels were lower than epic rank were caught by the succubus hypnosis and attacked her army. "Damn it! Once I get rid of them, I will burn those whores," a knight muttered and tried to knock back the horde that was rushing towards him. Noah and Nolan, who were monitoring the situation, were quite worried and were constantly thinking of a way to stop all of this. Seeing that the situation was getting out of hand, Noah thought that they had to break through the enemy formation and kill the succubus who was heavily guarded. "Wilford, it seems that you have to act soon. If this continues, we will accumulate a large amount of losses. We have to stop them." Milford nodded and looked at the scene with a solemn expression. Succubi may not be strong in combat, but their overall power is quite great. Enchanting and trapping others in the illusion can kill the weak-willed. "Leave it to me." Rhea ran forward leaving behind a message. "Will she be okay? If something were to happen to her, we're going to be in trouble," Nolan said with a worried expression. "She'll be fine," Noah assured her and looked at the battlefield as he waited for a miracle to happen. Rhea stepped forward and released her aura which attracted everyone's attention, and all the soldiers who had lost their senses ran towards her. Chapter 465, Answering the Prayer. Even though a large number of soldiers flocked towards Rhea, she moved forward without fear. Many soldiers wondered what the woman's identity was as it was their first time seeing someone like her. Rhea, unfazed by everyone's gaze, simply stepped forward. Her eyes simply observed everything calmly, and as they approached, her eyes shone with a purplish glow and a purple aura radiated from her. Swish! Everyone who was drawing their swords towards Rhea just now suddenly stopped. What's going on? Why are we attacking her? What happened? Why are you pointing your sword at us? The soldiers were mumbling as they looked at their comrades in confusion. They were trying to recall what had happened back there, but their memory was rather fuzzy. Noah immediately took command and shouted, You've all been hypnotized by the succubus and are attacking the allies. Now everyone get back into formation. The enemies are advancing. Although it was in order to retreat, they couldn't take a step back as the enemies advanced. The soldiers who were freed were now struggling to fight properly as their senses were still dulled. Ridaya's eyes swept across the battlefield and she fixed her gaze on the group of succubi hiding there. She also had a similar power, but she didn't like using it as much. It wasn't that she was afraid, but rather that she was embarrassed to use it. Ridaya took a step forward and her figure disappeared. Thud. Ridaya's figure landed near the enemy formation and was surrounded by the enemies who were shocked to see her appear there, but soon an amused smile bloomed on the faces of the three succubi. What a shameless girl. Tear all her limbs apart. Don't kill her. Clang. Ridaya stopped the sword with her dagger and a shockwave swept across the battlefield. Ridaya turned her head and saw that she was surrounded, and they were all demons smiling at her. They looked at her thinking she was the foolish lamb who had just jumped into it, but they would soon be proven wrong. Bang! Ridaya's figure flashed and moved like thunder. It was followed by a shockwave that would make many lose their balance. At the center of the shockwave, Ridaya stood behind the backs of the two demons and soon two heads fell to the ground. The demons' expressions were distorted and they all roared in anger. Kill her! The demons attacked Ridaya from all sides. Ridaya glared at them coldly and raised her dagger. Boom! A demon body flew backwards after being hit by Ridaya, which was followed by another attack. Ridaya jumped back, dodging the scythe that passed under her, and threw her dagger. Bang! A demon's head burst like a watermelon. The dagger that was thrown kept its rotation and changed its trajectory in the air and stuck into the neck of another demon. Daggers shot out from Ridaya, and with each throw, a corpse fell down. The tip of the daggers was tied with a rope with which it changed its trajectories in the air. As Ridaya dealt with the demons that flocked to meet her, she attracted a lot of attention. The Arkham soldiers took this opportunity to fight back. The Necromancer and the Black Mage were still making it difficult for them to advance through the front lines, while the resistance had decreased when Ridaya took command. It was at that moment, a strong burst of dark mana radiated and a mist of miasma appeared and struck them out of nowhere. Ugh! The Arkham soldiers let out groans as they felt the piercing pain of burning skin as they were hit by the miasma. Their minds became hazy and they staggered to keep up with their steps. Saint Helena, Nolan shouted as he looked at the saint. Helena and her squads immediately rushed forward. The bright light they emitted spilled over the place. The holy light gushed forward and clashed with the miasma. The scene was similar to two tsunami waves colliding with each other, trying to overpower each other. The battle lasted for a while and soon the miasma dispersed. But it was too soon to relax as another wave arrived, after which waves of dark miasma flooded in one after another. What's going on? Where is another wave coming from? Noah spoke with a frustrated expression. Ridaya, who was fighting the demons, suddenly had a bad feeling. Something's wrong, she muttered as she cut down the one in front and tried to move towards the allied forces. As she killed, she found that the demons had suddenly become stronger and more ferocious. And on top of that, she felt the presence of some sinister beings rushing towards her. Swish! 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 Leaving a dark trail, a group of shadowy figures followed their path. There were some knights who tried to stop them, but they were interrupted by them. One of them wielded two crescent-shaped swords. Every step he took was accompanied by a fall of the enemy's body. Behind him, many rushed in his direction. Ridaya found it difficult to make her way through as the demons tried to drag her to their death. It was at that moment that she saw the happy expression of the demons he cut down. Ridaya's eyes widened and her senses screamed in danger. Flames rose into the sky accompanied by thunderous explosions one after another. All the demons surrounding Ridaya self-detonated to kill her, which makes no sense at all since many of them hadn't even faced her yet. But if one looked back a little, one could see some smiling figures. Seeing them made it easier to deduce. It was an order received from the succubi standing behind. The succubus smile didn't last long enough, as a few meters away from the explosion, Ridaya's figure emerged from the shadow with an ugly expression. Ridaya observed that the situation was getting out of control as the demons began killing like maniacs. Their mad laughter echoed throughout the field as they ran frantically. Helena found it difficult to control the dark miasma overwhelming them. She knew that if they succumbed to it, the situation would only get worse, so she tried to resist, but it wasn't enough. Goddess, I know I'm lacking a lot, that's why you still give me strength. Please grant me the power to help the noble souls who are trying to purge the darkness. Please don't abandon those who seek justice in your name. Helena prayed in her heart as she gritted her teeth and poured out all of her divinity, trying to master the miasma. On the other hand, the demons were fighting merrily. Who will stop us? We have the power of a higher being that can master the light. We are supreme. Your power of light can't do anything against us. Ha 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 ha. The demons laughed madly but stopped when they heard a tearing sound coming from somewhere. Helena's expression changed and she felt like her prayer was answered by the goddess. And then everyone looked up to the sky to see a flash followed by a human figure slashing with his sword, followed by everything being enveloped in a bright light. Chapter 466, Surprising Everyone. A bright light colored everyone's vision. The miasma that was heading towards the Arkham forces was removed and purified in the span of a moment. However, it was not as surprising as the event that occurred afterwards. A line was drawn on the path as if it divided reality. A heavy silence invaded the battlefield. As if the sea had been divided, the miasma was purified and a path was created with a single cut. Along the path created by the cut, Alex walked and the bodies of the enemies, regardless of the species on the opposite side, began to split and fall. The path extended to the place where Rhea was located and surprisingly none of the allies were hurt. Alex, who was marching forward and observing everything on the battlefield, muttered. Everyone's eyes shone with surprise and bewilderment. Many could identify his figure by seeing the symbolic golden hair, but none could believe that he was there and helping them. It was ridiculous, but they still have to accept the reality. I need to get to the other side as quickly as possible. Alex's pace gradually quickens with a cold tone. With heavy steps, the image of Alex walking over the corpses lined up before him blurred and soon turned into a stream of wind. How disgusting. Only then did the surrounding demonic body come to its senses and screams filled with rage roared through the skies. A mass of demons rushed towards Alex covered in a dark cloak. From the sky, it seemed like a single man was braving the waves of the Black Sea surrounding him. Hiss. A large sword appeared on his back and then with a loud voice, the group charged towards Alex from the front and were swept away and crushed into pieces. Bang! 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 The eyes of the demons and monsters were filled with bewilderment and surprise. The mages among the demons summoned countless spells. Hundreds? No. Thousands of spells were summoned in an instant and were fired at Alex. Bang! Bang! However, before they could reach him, they were all destroyed one by one. Alex looked back and saw Noel leading his mage corps and supporting him. The morale of the allied soldiers rapidly rose and they charged like crazy to crush the enemies. The demons and monsters were instantly annihilated. Alex's eyes scanned everywhere and looked for the necromancer and the black mages hiding in the fray, and soon his image blurred after he looked at Rhea. Rhea nodded and turned her attention to the other side. Her face turned sour as three figures trying to flee were reflected in her eyes. I'm going to tear you bitches apart today. Noah observed the scene and looked at Wilford, who was giving him a strange look. Something's wrong with him. Ah. Noah asked in a surprised tone. His realm hasn't changed much, but his body radiates a strong sense of suffocating pressure that even forces me to be on guard. Wasn't it before? No, he may have been strong before, but I never felt like he posed any danger. Also, his power seemed to have changed a bit. Sword attacks aimed at vital points rained down from both sides of Alex, who was running through the barrage of high-level demons guarding the place. As if he had expected it, Alex naturally took a diagonal step and at the same time leaned in to avoid a sword attack. Swish! Red flame circulated around Alex and swelled and swallowed the demon who fired his swords into nothingness. The demon let out a piercing scream before turning into nothingness, but Alex cuts through it before checking. Meanwhile, dozens of mages and necromancers fired their magic at Alex indiscriminately. Alex's body emitted a strong scorching heat. A bright sun filled with a divine and holy aura erupted, preventing the undead from getting close to him. Zoo! 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 All kinds of magic approached Alex, dyeing the entire space with various colors that blinded his vision. This magic mixes in the air to create synergy and become more powerful. Usually, Alex would have gone slower and thought of a way to deal with it with minimal movements, but he was in a hurry. A feeling of unease welled up in his heart, making him wonder if something bad could happen on the other side. Boom! All the magic exploded in front of Alex and engulfed the entire place in flames. A smile appeared on the faces of the demons, who thought they had killed the pest that was bothering them. That moment, a ray of light pierces through the explosion and shatters it. As if a lightning bolt was drawn horizontally, the light crossed the battlefield and in an instant, it rushed towards the mage and disappeared from their sight, shocking them. They looked around to find where the light was when they heard a bone-piercing sound. "Haven't you heard my name? Even though you haven't heard of me, you're underestimating me too much, or should I say that you're all begging me to kill you." A heavy sigh escaped his lips. "Still, it's fine. Because in this war, I'll make sure to etch my name into the world." Before Alex, who had arrived from behind, one of the combat mages who had excellent reaction speed immediately tried to block him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Along with him, the black mages tried to cast an illusion on him while hurling curses towards Alex, filling all directions with around a dozen spells. Damn it, Charshi, who was the captain of the 7th Battle Legion and was quite close to Alex, witnesses the scene amidst the explosion as he insults Alex and runs towards him. "What the hell are you going to do by yourself? I understand that you are strong, but charging into an enemy battalion full of mages who consider themselves superior to warriors is nothing but suicide." He didn't know Alex and had never seen him before. Unaware of his strength, he wondered why this idiot had waded into the middle of mages who could kill him. It was at that moment that Charshi and his squad's footsteps stopped and his face contorted. Seeing the scene, he screamed in shock. What the hell? The line of mages covering Alex erupted mercilessly and an eerie crimson aura began to rise like explosions one after another, blasting away the demons that were enough to give one goosebumps just by looking at it. Chapter 467, Surprising Everyone 2. Charshi and the members of the 7th Squad saw a crimson line drawn horizontally in front of them. He was known to be a rational and cold personality, but at that moment he was shocked beyond his wildest dream. Hell spread after the line was drawn on the surface, followed by the demon core being torn apart mercilessly. Everything that passed through the arc of that line was twisted and cut apart. The demons screamed in despair as dozens of arms and legs were flung away. "No, stop!" Wailing sounds could be heard as the greatsword was slashed down with massive force, but turning a deaf ear, Alex pulled it back and slashed again. Swish! Explosions could be heard and magic attacks poured in at Alex from all directions, but the attacks were bounced off, or rather were thrown back at them by Alex. Kaya, help! The situation began to get worse for the demon magic core. Close-range combat was already fatal for them and they tried to defend themselves using barriers. However, contrary to their expectations, the barrier shattered like glass as soon as the greatsword collided. They were not mercilessly cut down, but all of them were struck by the gigantic black sword. Charshi, who snapped out of her thoughts after hearing the roar of agony, shouted to her squad members, "Everyone march forward and support that man. Today, we will destroy everything and kill every demon that exists here." Although many were skeptical of the statement upon seeing Alex's performance, each of them thought that somehow this could be possible as long as the man took the initiative. Noah and Nolan also spoke up in an attempt to stir up everyone's morale. Then, the moment the words left the two princes' mouths, the full-scale confrontation between the two sides began. Quiver. The three succubi tried to quickly flee in order to preserve their lives. Their bodies trembled in fear as they saw what was happening. The best cards had yet to be chosen by both sides. They weren't a trump card, but they could cause significant damage to the opposing army by turning friends into enemies. Their strategy was working well until that dark-veiled woman appeared who nullified their charm in an instant. The dark-veiled woman chased after them as if she held some deep resentment towards them, even though they had met her for the first time. And if that wasn't enough, a bloody beast appeared out of nowhere. Report. They have to report this to Lady Angelina. The three succubi who were running for their lives suddenly tripped and fell to the ground. 4. What the fuck? One of them muttered and looked around when she heard a cold voice. Bitch. Their blood froze as a lady covered in a veil appeared before them, giving them an ominous feeling. Who are you? They screamed as they saw darkness all around them, and furthermore their power seemed to be suppressed by her presence. It was as if all the powers they had lost became normal. I don't like sluts who seduce others, so I will get rid of all of you, Ridia said in a cold tone and took a step forward. Help! The three succubi screamed, causing the surrounding demons to notice Ridia and rush towards her. How the fuck did she get in here? Strange. I can't sense her presence, the demon core murmured in disbelief as the enemy penetrated their formation and appeared near them, but the surprise didn't last long and they greeted her with all sorts of weapons. Black light erupted from all over Ridia's body and turned into 100 sharp swords and began to shatter the attacks that fell on her along with the magic of the nearby battle mages. Perhaps sensing that that wasn't enough, the black light spread out indiscriminately and tore all the demons near her into pieces. As a result, A huge empty space was created, and the noise on the battlefield stopped for a moment at the sight of such a scene. In the silence, the three succubi's eyes widened and their hearts beat crazily in fear as they sensed impending doom. However, they stood up and tried to flee. Swish! Something intangible passed over them and they soon fell and rolled on the ground for some distance. The words stuck in their throats as they raised their heads only to see that their legs had been cut off, and soon there were threads on their arms and necks. Which one should I cut first? Riya muttered with a cold smile as she tilted her head with an innocent look. Seeing her gaze, the succubus burst into tears. Riya tightened the strings but immediately retreated and a halberd struck the ground where she stood. A demon appeared at that spot and raised the bar and asked, "How about we both take a step back?" Riya's eyes sharpened as she witnessed the appearance of the mythical ranked demon and replied coldly. "No." Riya waved her hand and under the demon's astonishing gaze, 3 heads fell causing blood to gush out like a mountain. Hillis looked back and saw 3 black daggers disappearing after doing their job. "Interesting," Hillis muttered to himself as anger boiled within him as he saw the girl killing behind his back. "I'm going to tear you apart." Riya raised her dagger and was about to attack when she felt a suffocating pressure that caused her eyes to be drawn back to see a charming figure walking forward with light steps while swaying her hips. She looked like a bewitching and tempting flower that evoked a deeper desire. Following her, many mythic rankers appeared on the battlefield, which once again caused a stir on the battlefield. With snow-white skin, cherry-like plump lips, and a voluptuous body, she licked her lips as her gaze permeated everything on the battlefield. Anyone who received that gaze felt a tingling sensation in their chest and a desire to surrender themselves to the beauty that appeared before them. "Another bitch," Riya spat angrily as she looked at her with an awkward gaze because her level was quite high. She hadn't reached the Saint Realm, but she was already at the limit. The demoness tilted her head towards Riya and her eyes widened in surprise. Her 2 large assets jiggled as if they wanted to burst. "Hey girl, you have an amazing figure, why don't you get under my command? I'll teach you a few tricks and with them you'll be able to subdue any man you desire." Riya's eyes widened upon hearing the lady's shameless thoughts and she screamed agitatedly, losing her composure. "Crazy bitch," she muttered as she gave him her murderous glare. Alex frowned upon seeing Riya's behavior. "She's getting riled up too quickly. Did something happen to her while I was away?" Alex pondered and thought that this might be due to the succubi having a similar aura as hers. "Holy!" The succubus giggled seductively after hearing Riya's provocation and tilted her head ignoring it. Suddenly her gaze caught the image of the man, causing her body to shudder. His gaze was enough to send her into ecstasy. Everyone saw their gaze fall on Alex and looked at her to see her drooling as she smiled like a psychopath. She licked her lips and shouted, "I finally found my toy." Following her declaration, the battlefield was enveloped in another deathly silence. Chapter 468, Annoying Insects. Riya's expression distorted and she stared at Angelina, wanting to dig holes into her body with her daggers. Her figure tried to rush towards her but was blocked by the Hillis. "Where are you going, girl? Your opponent is me." Riya responded by stabbing her dagger forward and Hillis responded by raising his axe to defend himself. Tang! 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 Hillis' hands trembled as Riya forcefully stabbed the dagger into him, causing small splinters to appear on his axe as she pushed him back. Hillis frowned, sensing the girl's abnormal strength. Seeing her struggling desperately, Hillis pondered for a moment and tilted his gaze to the other side and his lips curved into a smile. "Do you have anything to do with that man? If so, should you just forget about him? Anyone who falls into Duchess Angelina's traps will never get out of them. After all, she is known as the queen of the succubi." Noah's expression hardened and he looked at Wilford with a solemn expression. "Will you be able to defeat her?" Wilford's eyes locked onto Angelina, who seemed to ignore his presence along with everyone else on the battlefield and only looked at Alex. "She's close, very close to breaking through the walls, unlike me, who arbitrarily restrains myself from breaking through the Saint's realm and protecting the royal family. She had half a foot in that realm. If she manages to break through, we'll be in trouble," Wilford muttered with a gloomy expression. "Then that means you have to break through as well," Noah muttered. "But if that happens, I can't stay with all of you." Noah looked at Wilford's sad expression. He had known Wilford since his childhood. To him, he was like a grandfather who looked after them through thick and thin. The main reason he hadn't broken down was to remain the chief honorary knight and protect the royal family. Once he enters the Saint Realm, he has to retreat so as not to interfere with the world. "It's better than dying here," Noah said. Wilford nodded and raised his hand. The mythic rank knights appeared behind him and bowed their heads. "Your Highness, please ask the others to retreat. From now on, it will be very difficult for others to interfere," Wilford said and stepped forward. As the entire battlefield went through a series of changes, two mythical players approached Alex and smiled in amusement. "Jojo. What do we have here?" Stam family's trademark golden hair. "But there was a Stan in Arkham," Adam muttered as he approached Alex. Seeing the second Prince Noah alive, "May I know who you are?" Neziah muttered and added, "But as far as I remember, you're not Stan." Adam and Neziah looked at each other and spoke at the same time. "Because you're the disowned trash that was thrown away, ha ha ha." They both burst into laughter and bumped their huge fists against each other and mocked Alex. "There's one thing I wanted to ask you." Adam and Neziah's expressions changed as they watched Alex disappear from the spot. Alex, who appeared behind them, spoke with a bored expression. "What do you think of those young bugs crawling around on the ground and doing nothing but bothering you?" Flames and light erupted and swayed and began to engulf Alex's entire body. Once the flames had completely covered him, a crimson light began to emerge through which one could see eyes that seemed to be smiling. Only then did Neziah realize that the bugs Alex had referred to were themselves, and their expressions distorted mercilessly. It was at that moment. No, it was shorter than the moment, and that was all it took. What? For Neziah had to be slammed into the ground by Alex, who had far surpassed the two demons' reaction speed. These two had underestimated him, so Alex took this opportunity to punch them with all his might. Flames erupted and engulfed them, which was followed by howling sounds that erupted like crazy. Neziah was thrown to the ground and buried in the dirt by a punch, along with flames igniting on his face, crushing bones at the point of impact. No, at that moment, Adam realized the situation and threw a massive fist towards Alex, who was right in front of him. Boom. The shot distorted the atmosphere around them to show how powerful the punch was. Normally Alex would have dodged the fist and then tried to escape, but Alex didn't. Instead, he kicked Neziah in the face, who spun and rose from the ground. Alex stretched out his hand and held Neziah's head with one hand, and used his face as a shield. Neziah, whose consciousness almost faded due to Alex's instant punch, reacted instinctively and raised his arms to block it. Adam's eyes widened and he tried to retract his hand for fear of crushing his teammate. Alex caught the slight hesitation in Adam's eyes and fired his fist. Boom. A huge wave from the point of contact spread everywhere in an instant and began to destroy everything around it. A scream echoed from Adam's lips as his fist, which was retreating, was completely crushed by Alex. He felt as if he had hid an immovable substance, and his fist had been crushed to such an extent that it had deformed from its original form. Alex smiled as he found the result quite satisfying. All the torture he had gone through burning and reshaping his body over and over again had tempered his body. Adam immediately reacted and tried to gain some distance, but 100 arrows pierced through Adam, and a terrifying sound rang out as if a nail was scratching a steel plate. Alex's lips curled upwards in surprise as he saw an armor of darkness appear over Adam's chest and cover him. Swish! Leaving behind the dust, Alex's figure launched itself towards Adam. Sensing the power contained in Alex's punch, Adam stopped moving and enlarged his hands and shot forward, trying to block Alex's attack. The friction created by the collisions causes sparks to fly in all directions, lighting up the surroundings. As the two retreated, Adam heard an icy voice. "Hey, you forgot something." Adam's body instinctively stopped due to an ominous feeling, and when his gaze caught Alex, he mistakenly shouted, "Stop." Chapter 469, Inducing Fear. Adam was puzzled to see Alex holding Neziah's collar while looking at him with indifferent eyes. Seeing the cruelty in Alex's eyes made Adam shudder in fear, and the thought of losing appeared in his mind. While there was a possibility of losing, being defeated one-sidedly by being on his level was really out of the question. However, witnessing the situation, he felt that it was because of his arrogance that they were caught off guard, which led to all of this. Both of them were caught off guard by the mouse, who struck them with everything when he found the opening and nearly rendered Neziah's fighting ability useless. Alex looked at Adam with an indifferent look and applied strength to his hand, and grabbed Neziah's face. Arg! A dark flame rising like an explosion with him burns the entire face. Kaya, perhaps awakened by the burning pain of raw flesh making a sizzling sound, she began to scream as she struggled with her limbs while being held by Alex. She desperately struggled, pouring out all of her strength, which caused everything around her to be reduced to dust. But as if held by the hands of death, Alex's body didn't move even though some of the blows hit it, causing rocks and boulders to shatter into pieces and through the areas behind her. A wide path of destruction appeared behind Alex after Nezaeh slammed her elbow into Alex's statue, which only caused her more pain. It felt like she was hitting something indestructible. How? Why is her body so hard? What kind of technique does she practice exactly? In the last attempt, he drew out all of his mana to protect himself. Nezaeh tried to cover his body with layers of mana and aura to protect himself from the fire, but the blindingly bright flame pierced through the layers. Adam roared in anger and rushed towards Alex. Alex cruelly smiled as he saw the despair in Adam's eyes and raised his other hand, coating it with the aura and wrapping it around Nezaeh. He pierced through her chest and, reaching her heart, crushed it mercilessly. Glurg. Blood gushed from Nezaeh's lips and screams of despair instantly took over her and her figure collapsed. All signs of resistance disappeared and her breathing stopped. The demons who saw the scene felt their scales go numb as they watched the man effortlessly kill the mythic rancor. Angelina, who saw the scene instead of feeling angry, smiled a little and her eyes shone with intense joy as she asked to show him more. Those cold, indifferent and cruel gazes attracted her even more and aroused her desire to dominate the man and have him for herself. I need to have him for myself. I can't let such a heavenly fruit fall into the hands of another. Alex threw her aside and turned to look at Adam again. Seeing his partner dying in front of him tore at his heart. He wanted to save her but his body froze as he sensed the danger of the flames, and before he could do anything he killed her in a brutal manner. Even demons like them don't kill others by crushing their enemies' hearts into pieces. He felt as if the person in front of him was more of a demon than he was. Adam flinched back a little as he saw his partner lying there with dead eyes filled with shock and helplessness. Adam couldn't snap out of this state of shock and burst into great anger and began to raise all of his power. His muscles swelled even more. Unlike other demons, he was the only one who invested everything into his steel body and physical strength, while Nezaeh invested in magic. But despite his steel body, his arms were torn apart by the humans whom they considered to be as physically weak as dolls. The man's physical prowess was quite strong, and with every blow, the man had tremendous strength. If you are careless even a little, you will end up like Nezaeh. Even so, he could hardly admit that he was pushed back in a face-to-face confrontation with an insignificant human. Are you afraid of a human? What kind of outrageous thoughts are these? He will prove his superiority and make the human beg for his life for killing his companion. I will crush you without a trace of your existence. Adam, whose size had been transformed into a 3-meter muscular beast, shot towards Alex like a horse-drawn chariot. The ground crumbled behind him, unable to withstand his force. Bang! I'm waiting. Alex clenched his fist as he looked at the light heading towards him. The reddish core inside him began to spin, emitting a fiery aura through his veins. As if resonating with his power, the light and flames around him began to burn more ominously. An armor of flames and light intertwined over his body, protecting the user's body by supporting all physical abilities. There was no reason to avoid a direct attack coming towards him, otherwise everything Alex had done so far would have been in vain. He clenched his fist and stretched forward. The moment Alex's fist and Adam's shoulder, who had come to the front, collided with each other. Swish! Boom! With a huge shockwave that shook the entire place by blasting everything in the surroundings, Adam's upper body shattered and exploded like a display case. Adam's lower body stuttered, still maintaining a bit of vitality, but Alex pulled out her greatsword and swung it, blowing away Adam's remains like a dry twig in the storm. After confirming that the life backlash emanating from Adam had completely disappeared, Alex turned her head towards Nezaeh, who was in the corner. Although her head was almost burnt and her heart pierced, she was still alive. Although her body was not breathing and there was no sign of life, it was still alive. She might be able to fool others, but Alex's mana detection could still sense the strong vitality hidden within her. Alex's lips curved upwards when she saw Nezaeh's corpse-like body. How? Seeing Alex walking towards her slowly, she vomited out a voice of despair. Nezaeh couldn't comprehend the situation. Obviously, the man's power was so low that he couldn't compete with him, but contrary to her thoughts, it was them who couldn't compete. She tried to pretend she was dead and wait for an opportunity to sneak attack, but seeing Adam's physical body burst like a piece of glass, she abandoned that thought and waited for someone to come and attack him to allow her to escape. It was also with this thought that she pretended to be dead and didn't move even though the enemy was coming towards him. It is said that being persistent is considered the same as a mistake. How did you know I'm alive? Nezaeh reacted with a trembling voice and tried to escape. Demons had strong regeneration and could regenerate lost limbs, but the demons before him could also regenerate hearts. So Alex used it to dissuade the other and play with their minds. Once fear starts to well up in one's heart, no matter how experienced a person is, they're bound to make mistakes. Alex arrived in front of Nezha as if he had no intention of answering that question and crushed his head without hesitation. Bang! Blood splatters and the corpse turns into ashes scattered by the wind. After observing the scene for a while, Alex turned around and saw the battles that had been happening all around. The weaker ones had retreated a little, allowing the stronger ones to run wild. The entire battlefield had been plunged into chaos. Despite all the fighting, Alex could feel many gazes on him trying to assess him, and they were from both the demon and Arxida side. Many people don't know Alex personally or his relationship with Arkham, so after seeing Alex's prowess they looked at him suspiciously. Although he was calm, Alex could understand his position. After all, some people abandon their own country in the face of danger or benefit, while he doesn't even belong here. Alex saw Raya, who was fighting with a demon. For a moment he was taken by surprise. Raya was previously at the mid-legendary rank, but now she was not only at the top, but was also very close to advancing to the mythic rank. While Alex had spent 6 months in the pocket dimension, Raya had also trained with him for 3 months, but her advancement was quite shocking. Alex turned his gaze observing everything that was happening around the battlefield and decided to help where the Arkham forces were having the most trouble by supporting them with healing spells, but before that he needed to deal with some annoyances. Alex felt the annoying presence approaching him and stopped when he heard a voice from behind that had a great amount of power. "Hello, handsome. Would you like to chat with this big sister?" Chapter 470, A Sight Worth Behold. Alex watched the woman walk towards him cautiously. The demons in her path made way for her and bowed their heads to pass. Many demons from afar greeted her with deep reverence that represented her status, while many on the human side couldn't take their eyes off her. Her figure was quite mesmerizing and made many feel the growing bud of love within them. Even those who have reached the mythic rank and are quite old feel their desires being ignited by her presence. Wilford, who was watching this, could sense that this woman was quite dangerous and wanted to finish her off as quickly as possible, but his gaze met Alex's, who gave him a calm look and a signal to wait and watch. Wilford decided to watch for now and attack if anything went wrong. Magenta hair and pure white skin. Her body exuded a unique charm, and she could be considered a devilish beauty that could charm any man as she wished. The 2 small dark wings on her back fluttered and her tail wagged, showing her excitement. "Do you know how many years I've waited for this day?" Alex frowned and grabbed his sword. Although Alex had become stronger, the woman before him was not something to be scorned. She could fight Wilford equally and was at the border of the Saint Realm. It doesn't matter whether Alex won here or not. What matters is his condition. The other side might be much stronger. If he was left half dead here, what could he do when he reached the other side? Seeing Alex's wariness, Angelina smiled and said, "You don't need to be afraid of this, elder sister." Alex nodded her head shamelessly. She disliked the woman, but she was waiting for an opportunity to strike. "You and that old man will wonder why I'm still here," she smiled and looked at Wilford. "That's because I'm waiting for someone like you." Everyone who heard her words felt that it was a joke, as this was neither a garden nor a place to discuss all these kinds of things. As a succubus, we have strong desires, but for a perfect being like me, I can't settle for anyone less than perfect. How arrogant, Alex thought to herself. Although I had my share of fun as a woman, my heart always yearned for someone special. A thick vein bulged on Alex's forehead and, unable to absorb any more, she cried out. "So what does that have to do with it?" Angelina smiled at Alex's response and muttered, "Once I reach the Saint Realm, I have to retire according to the treaty, and since my freedom would be restricted, how could I look for my special someone? Everyone who has ascended to the Saint Realm is nothing more than an old man with 1 foot in the grave. And after all those years, you are the only one I could find who perfectly fits my criteria." Wilford, who was watching the scene in bewilderment, blurted out, "So, you wanted to be an old cow who wanted to eat young grass, Mr. Wilford?" Noah shouted to bring Wilford back to his senses. "And yes, don't look at me like that, otherwise I will evaluate those eyes of yours," Angelina said as she looked at Wilford coldly. Angelina smiled and walked towards Alex. Alex felt his scent getting stronger. "I like your style. Can you smell my scent? This fragrance flows from my body and paralyzes a person's senses." As if the words were true, Alex's eyes clouded over. Raya, who noticed it from afar, shouted in a worried tone and tried to rush forward but was blocked by the Hillis. Wilford couldn't take it anymore and decided to rush forward but was stopped by 3 mythical ranked demons. Damn it, Wilford shouts and looks at Angelina, who seemed to be in her own world. It also serves to shake the mind so I can infiltrate. Angelina's eyes moved towards Alex and her scent filled the place. Before that, let me look at who you are and know your wishes so I can fulfill them in the future. The evil eye of extermination. It was a demonic eye that eroded consciousness and could dive deep into a person's soul by looking at it. In addition to being a succubus, Angelina was blessed with a special power. The effect was maximized by the magical scene emitted from her body. Angelina smiled as she looked into Alex's eyes. They had lost their light due to the cloudiness. She touched his chin and her spirit penetrated Alex's soul. It penetrated into his mind without any concern. The evil eye of extermination, which is one of the highest levels of magic eyes, made his mentality almost invincible among his peers and those of higher beings. However, at that moment, there's something strange. Every being has some barrier to the manifestation of certain things in consciousness that represents him or his behavior, or it may also be what has happened. This appeared in various forms. To some it may seem like a place of various scenery, to others there may be overlapping images of certain creatures based on their behavior, or it may be a scene they have passed through that had a profound influence on their body. Since he was a Stan and is so strong being at a legendary rank, his soul might be quite tough as well. Still, to her who had delved into the saint and half-supreme soul to test their strengths, it was not difficult at all. However, she couldn't shake off the strange feeling. That moment. Whoosh! Angelina's perception, which seemed to pass through a narrow passageway, expanded in an instant by several folds and a vast world unfolded before her eyes. Good, a world covered in mist appeared before her. It was at that moment, Angelina looked around with a cruel smile and her eyes lit up at the sight of the welcoming light. Thud. Rumble. Earthquake. What's going on? And finally, when he saw the scene, his body for the first time in his life shuddered and he collapsed to the ground. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 471, A Sight Worth Behold. Angelina's eyes turned towards the sound, and her jaw dropped wide, and her eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Her body began to tremble as if it was about to tear itself apart. It was an army. No, it was more than just an army. Millions? No, 10 million or even more? It was an endless swarm that stretched all the way to the end. Bang! 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 The army filled the world, endlessly throwing swords and spears onto the ground. Corpses littered the ground, and the blood from the corpses seemed to form an ocean of narrow depth. The sound produced by the weapons repeatedly striking and the clashing of metal seemed like a song made to praise something. Her gaze was then drawn towards an overwhelming presence. At the center of said army was a throne that towered into the sky. And the man sat on the throne exuding a majesty incomparable to any other. More than anything else in the world, the man's expression was covered with a sense of boredom. The sound of the bell around him seemed like a fear sent by countless troops that only that man could hear. It was the adoration towards the man who seemed to look down on everything. Before that man, everything seemed to have no value. Angelina cried out and gasped in fear. Her voice trembled as if she had just witnessed a mythical and at the same time taboo spectacle that should not be witnessed by a mere being like her. The man's suddenly dull eyes turned towards her. That moment. Thud. Whistle. Everything returned to silence, and at that moment millions of gazes turned towards Angelina at the same time. She felt an unfathomable killing intent taking over her, freezing her in that spot. And that was the moment she realized that she had touched something she shouldn't have touched. It was a scene she should never have witnessed. The manifestation of a person's consciousness varied greatly from person to person, but they had one thing in common. All of them had a single living being entity in the middle followed by a few around it formed by a single entity that had multiple entities, but that didn't mean that the multiple entities couldn't extend into hundreds of thousands. There might have been millions of corpses, weapons, and everything else, but they weren't alive. The reason was that it was impossible to sustain such a vast world, and also the manifestation of multiple entities splits the soul force. But why? She couldn't understand. No matter how much she thought, her brain was unable to comprehend. Why is there such an army before her? What is the identity of this person? Even God can tremble at the sight of him. Just one look from the army was enough to make her body tremble, as if she was going to disappear from existence. And the man who was looking down at her from the throne stood up from his seat, and a smile appeared on his face. It was absurd. Out of all the existence of this world and perhaps outside, you are fortunate to see this, but at the same time, you are unlucky to touch the strings that should not be touched. As soon as she heard that man's words, she felt a greater fear for that man than for the sea of armies. It was quite tiring and boring. There was nothing more suitable to describe that man's expression. The man looked at Angelina and lightly moved his finger at her. At that moment the sea of armies began to move. From the end of the horizon to the boundless sky. Everything shook crazily from the running of the horses that filled the entire place. After that, the soldiers, whose end is unknown, follow them non-stop, pouring out military praises to the emperor. Angelina's body stared at the approaching sea of army that was aiming at her. A soul that had been strengthened by the eye of extermination. A body beautiful enough to cause war between nations. Strength and skill accumulated over years. Hard work to reach the point where she could single-handedly trample an army. But all of this seemed to have proved meaningless. A person of superior mythic rank like her felt like an insect that couldn't even resist. Weapons poured out from all directions, and that one-sided execution and abuse didn't last for a second, leaving emptiness and despair in her eyes. It seems like the outside had finally harvested something to have fun with. I didn't think that after countless lifetimes, it would awaken again. It seems that the coward I have forgiven has grown enough to provide me with some fun in this life. The man sat on the throne with a hint of anticipation in his eyes, and soon the entire scene faded away and was replaced by a sea of corpses. Gurgle. A massive amount of blood gushed out of Angelina's mouth as she regained consciousness in her original body. Her soul was nearly destroyed along with her eye of extermination, and the recoil causes tremendous damage to her body. Ugh, she groaned in pain and fell to the ground. Her body twisted and blood emerged from all 7 orifices. The emotion in Angelina's eyes was not the pain of her current state but rather fear. I must run away. No, everyone should run away. The man standing in front of her was not a monster. He was an existence that goes beyond. He was an existence that she could never touch in her lifetime, no matter how hard she tried. And to add to her despair, she was thinking of taking this man for herself before. That was why she had to run away, and soon her instincts screamed in her mind, giving her a warning signal. She screamed like a beast on the verge of death. Everyone ran away. Escape for your life. Don't fight this man. Angelina's scream echoed throughout the battlefield, giving everyone goosebumps regardless of the side. Even Wilford was horrified to see Angelina crying and pleading like that. It seemed as if her pride had been crushed and trampled on. A being who was about to ascend to the Holy Realm was reduced to this state. While the humans were perplexed, the demons were horrified. Angelina, who was also called the Succubus Queen, was one of the strongest generals. She is also one of the heads of the 10 major houses that rule the land of demons, and a person of great importance. However, at this moment they could only see a pitiful person. Please don't kill me, I will call off the war. I will never raise my head or step on human land. If you don't believe me, you can force me to sign a contract, whatever it is, just don't kill me. As she cried pitifully, Alex stood still on the spot like a statue with a blank expression. I have a question. At that moment, a low voice reached Angelina's ears. Do you think I'll let you go after you touch me? A sinister smile formed on Alex's lips. At that moment, Angelina knew. Those eyes. That expression. It was the same. The eyes were filled with the same expression she saw on that man in the soul world. It was the moment when his eyes became tinted with desperation. No. Stop. Turn it off. Don't look at me. Chapter 472, Trampling on the Enemy's Morale. Alex saw Angelina collapse and scream pathetically, but he was too focused to notice her expression. His mind was occupied with many things. He felt a deep sense of alienation from himself that came out of nowhere. It was because the scene Angelina saw also terrified him to a certain extent. The manifestation of Alex's soul world should consist of corpses and a scene after a devastating war. It was a scene similar to Hell Judgments, and he should have been sitting there in the middle. But the scene of that man and that army was many times more powerful than his own. And strangely enough, he felt that he was quite familiar with it, and although the strength of that man's soul was similar, its quality and control were at their peak. Since Alex was with a goddess, He found it hard to believe that the presence of the goddess couldn't compare to the pressure he exerted. Even the goddess fell short before him. And since he appears in his soul world, Alex must have some connection to him. Did something strange happen when Angelina used extermination eyes and my memory of another life awakened? Alex already knew about Angelina's extermination eyes, and in fact, he was waiting for her to use them on him. Once she enters, Alex will crush her soul. No matter how strong her soul is, it can't compare to his. It would also stop him from wasting energy on her. The result would be the same, but the way things happened left a bad taste in his mouth. She shook her head to clear her mind. She needed to focus on what was important first. Alex looked at Angelina trembling. The fatal effect left Angelina empty. It might be better to say that she couldn't even pose any danger to Master Ranker. Alex had torn her apart until there was nothing left. It would be nice to send you back to death, but that punishment would be too bad. Why don't you go back and report to your superior? Angelina's eyes trembled as she saw Alex's cruel smile. Enough. One of the mythic rankers screamed. Their patience had snapped at the sight of their general in that state. They burned their life force and began to fight like crazy. At that moment, Anher outpaced his opponent and lunged straight at Alex. He extended his claws wanting to grab Alex's neck. Bang! Anher's body was hit by an inanimate object and he was forced to take a step back. His eyes widened as he looked down and saw a deformed head near his feet. Hillis, she shouted and looked forward to see Riaya advancing towards her after killing Hillis. This is difficult, a cold voice echoed and Anher's ears perked up. It was at that moment that her eyes tinged with shock turned towards the direction the voice came from. Bang! Anher's body exploded without any gain and blood fragments scattered everywhere. Don't take your eyes off your enemy. Alex's fist dug into his chest and blasted into Anher's ribcage, who stared at him in disbelief. The shadow demons lost their minds at the sight of the one above being slaughtered like a pig, and all tried to pounce on the humans. They knew that it had become a matter of life and death. The other demons still have some sense and try to understand what was going on and how the situation came to this situation. The figure of the young man filled their faces with horror. It would still be believable to them if the man was at the mythic rank, but he is only at the legendary rank, so how was this possible? To be honest, the current situation exceeded their expectations. Don't worry, our numbers are even greater than the enemy. Daryl, who was at the middle rank of the mythic, stepped forward and shouted. All the demons looked at him with the expression, "Who are you to judge?" The succubus queen was crushed even before she could put up any resistance. What can you do? But what could they do except follow his orders? Daryl gathered up the courage to speak and looked outside. His eyes were filled with worry. The man didn't kill many, but he killed their morale as soon as he set foot. Before their eyes appeared the existence of small elite troops slaughtering their own people. Without the support of the Dark Wizard and Mage Corps, they were constantly pushed forward. He also took care of the miasma. The gap between the two began to widen. Nolan, accompanied by his knights, advanced. The loss of many mythical ranks in a very short time by the demon side was a huge blow. With Angelina's death, there was no one here who could compete against Wilford. Her presence was enough to deter anyone. There were a total of 18 mythical ranks on the demon side and 13 on Arkham. The 3 mythical ranks that were blocked by Wilford retreated with serious injuries. Wilford did not pursue them alone and waited for Nolan to finish things off on his side, and then they would surround them. Whatever it was, he was sure of one thing. The enemy's annihilation was set in stone. Alex simply stood beside Angelina and did not make a move. His work here is done. Through the barrage of enemies, Riaya caught up to Alex, and after making sure Alex was okay, she turned her attention to Angelina. Angelina, who was sitting there like a helpless lady, started to tremble as Riaya pulled out her dagger. "Stop," Alex muttered and took her hand, signaling her to calm down. "Alex, let me kill her." "No, Riaya, she's of use to me, and more than that, you can sense the fluctuations of mana." Riaya gave Alex a strange look and closed her eyes. How can this be?" Riaya staggered and looked at Alex with a surprised look. "They're in trouble, but how could a saint interfere? It's a borrowed power and it's not yet the power that can be displayed as a saint, but we have to hurry. The situation on Kinley's side is getting worse." Riaya nodded and looked at Angelina. She finally understood why she was alive until now. Chapter 473, Overwhelming Presence. "Riaya, listen to me. There are 2 darkness seeds around the border that have been constantly producing miasma and at the same time are also supplementing the demon strength. I wanted to purify the land and store the darkness seed. But it seems to me the time is not in our favor, so I want you to collect it for me and oversee things here, help them short-circuit. Although I'm sure they don't need our help, it's better to take precautions beforehand. Do you want me to purify it or collect it? Ryan asked with a confused expression. I'm not sure if it can be purified, Alex replied and then added, and about collecting the darkness seed, use this. 2 small boxes flew out from Alex's storage ring. This box is similar to the one used to store the pill in the darkness. How did you get it? Are you sure those things can be stored here? Ryan asked with a surprised expression. These boxes are made from iris trees. The wood of the iris tree absorbs the darkness and doesn't let it spread. The brown wood slowly darken, and once it's completely dark, we'll have to change it. With some further enhancement, it can be used to stop the aura radiating from the darkness pill. However, I'm not sure about the darkness seed. I think it can store those things for a month or a little less. At that moment Noel walked towards them and Alex explained everything to him. Wait, but how are you going to break through the enemies? Although they've been defeated due to the loss of the best warriors, that doesn't mean they've given up or that we've won the war. It would still take a day or more to clean up 2 things here, Noah said. Also, our soldiers are on the verge of collapse. They also need to get some rest, otherwise, these demons that have grown stronger might cost us a lot of casualties. I have a solution for that. Alex smiled and looked at Angelina, whose presence had been ignored until now. Alex stepped forward and stared at her. Big sister, couldn't you help this brother of yours cross the field? Please ask them to open a path for me, otherwise you know what will happen. Alex's tone turned cold at the end of the speech. If you dare to have any thoughts, I will make sure to give you a pain worse than death. No, no, please forgive me, Angelina cried with a sad expression. If you help me, who knows, maybe I will forgive you. Angelina gulped and looked at Alex's cold gaze with a trembling expression. What choice did she have except to follow this man's orders? No, use your charm and let me pass. At the borders of Kinley, kick, stupid human bastards. I'll kill you. With a creepy smile, a mythic rank demon that looked like a spider shot its venom in all directions. Ugh. Let's detoxify it. The bodies of the knights and soldiers who touched such poison melted without even having time to use their hands. There's nothing you can do. It was time for the spider demons, who cleaned up the surroundings in an instant to find a new target. Laughing madly, they rolled their eyes. A streak of silver line was drawn diagonally from the side. What? The spider demon reacted quickly and tried to defend him, but the silver flash that cut through the web shield also immediately cut the demon's body in half. The demon's corpses fell down with a rumble and a knight appeared in front of them. It was Harold, the leader of the 1st Division of suzerain troops headed by Sean. Even though he dealt with a mythical rank demon in an instant, his face was dark. There's no end to them. Initially, they were winning and thought they would finish off the other side easily. However, everything changed with the appearances of high-ranked demons. Not only did they cut through the other side with a vengeance, they even slaughtered the weaker ones, dealing heavy damage to them and forcing Kinley to use all his cards and give it his all at once. The owner of the flash seemed quite close to Sean. Your Majesty, the situation is getting serious. I know. His eyes were sunken into Sean in response to Harold's words. What should we do? At this rate, the loss of troops would be too great. Although we are slowly recovering, things may get worse, so should we retreat? No. Sean immediately shook his head before the knight finished speaking. If we flee now, our forces will be surrounded. That's why we need to speed up and continue advancing, Sean muttered, and his eyes looked beyond the battlefield. But there are too many monsters and demons blocking the front. Also, it seems like the demons are using something to increase their strength. Sean pondered for a moment. It doesn't matter. With a short reply, Sean pulled his sword back as if he was pulling a bowstring. From now on I, along with the knights under my command, will clear the way. Is it a sign? Harold thought and looked ahead. A bright right strike erupted with a clear noise. At the same time, aura began to rise one by one from the tip of the sword. The more aura condensed, the brighter the light and the more the surrounding place burned. The battle stopped due to the aftermath of the terrifying power flowing from it. At the same time, everyone's gaze followed Sean's swords, and with a loud burst of light, his sword was finally thrust forward. There was no sound after the thrust. Everything that exists in the bright light covers the entire field of vision. Everything that the light reaches turns into ashes and falls to the ground. No one knew how long the light in front of Sean extended, but as the light receded, a trail of extinction started from Sean's foot and extended to the end of a vision. With a loud instruction, Sean's figure shot along the path made by him. Everyone follow His Majesty Sean's order. The knights and soldiers who woke up late shouted and followed him. In a battle, momentum had a great influence. Don't stop. Clear the way. Claim. 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 Sean had enough power to change the momentum so that the knights and soldiers behind him advanced at a tremendous speed. Don't stop. Sean can be said to be one of the strongest warriors on the battlefield, and the way he cuts through and slices through every monster that stands in his way is truly devastating. The eyes of the soldiers, including Harold, lit up. Hex, who was watching the scene, frowned slightly as he saw Sean's prestige rise and a dangerous glint appeared in his mind. Sean, who was advancing forward, heard a roar that forced him to stop. Stop now! A loud shout erupted from Sean's lips as his eyes widened as he sensed the overwhelming presence. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.